Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had the power of the Hamato clan part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story Kevhedgehog from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Almost everyone in the world possesses unique abilities known as quirks, which can be considered superpowers. While some individuals use their quirks for the greater good, others choose to use them to cause destruction and harm to others. A significant 80% of the global population possesses quirks, and the majority of them utilize their abilities in positive ways. This is precisely what Izuku and his sister aspire to do. They aim to become heroes. Today, he woke up early because it was his and his sister's 4th birthday, and also the day they would discover their quirks. He hopped out of bed and rushed to his sister's room, which was located right next to his own. Just as he was about to knock, she flung open the door, her excitement matching his own. "Are you ready, Izumi?" he asked her. "As ready as I'll ever be, Izuku," she replied, jumping with excitement. As they descended the staircase, their parents were already prepared with lunch bags in hand. "We knew you would wake up early, so we planned ahead and made you breakfast," said 𝗵𝗏, also known as the hero Green Magnet. "Happy birthday to you both. Are you ready to go?" asked Toshinori, also known as the hero All Might. "Hell yeah, we are," they both shouted enthusiastically. They all got into the car and drove to the doctor's office to find out what their quirks are. Hours later in the waiting room, the parents anxiously awaited the results of their children's tests. After a short while, both kids emerged. Izumi's face was beaming with excitement, while Izuku appeared crestfallen. "Mr. and Mrs. Yagi, I have both good news and bad news," the doctor said. "What's the bad news?" both parents asked in unison, clearly concerned. "Your son has been diagnosed as quirkless, which may mean he'll have to consider other career options," the doctor explained, placing a comforting hand on Izuku's shoulder. 𝗵𝗏 expressed her worry, saying, "Oh dear. And the good news?" Toshi asked eagerly. "Congratulations, your daughter has developed a super-enhanced version of her mother's levitation quirk," the doctor revealed, his face beaming with joy. With that, the doctor left the family to celebrate on their own. Both parents rushed to embrace Izumi, leaving Izuku standing alone in the corner. "What about me?" Izuku thought to himself. As they went home, all the parents could think of was how Izumi got a quirk. They didn't even give Izuku a second thought. Later in the evening, Izuku sat on the staircase, watching her parents sing happy birthday to Izumi, not noticing he was not there. When he went to his room, he closed the door and looked up at his All Might poster. "I don't care if I don't have a quirk. I don't care if they ignore me. I will become a hero, just like All Might," Izuku said with determination as he punched the air, similar to All Might's pose. What he didn't know was that Izumi heard everything through his door and got worried. "This is bad, he gonna get hurt," Izumi whispered to herself. She took out her cell phone, called Izuku's friend, Katsuki Bakugo, and explained everything. "You're right, we need to do something," Bakugo said on the phone. "What are we gonna do?" she asked. "Let's use our quirks on him," he answered. "Excuse me," she retorted, "if we keep using our quirks on him, he will eventually be afraid of them and change his mind about being a hero," he answered back. Izumi thought about it for a minute. She didn't want to hurt her brother, but she knew it may be the only way to help him. "Let's do it," she said before hanging up the phone. Years later, many years have passed and Izuku still hasn't given up. His sister and Bakugo would constantly still bully him, and his parents still haven't acknowledged that he was around. He had to cook his own food from when he was 6, work as a newspaper boy at 9, and buy medical equipment because of all the burns Bakugo has given him. Right now, summer vacation was finally over and he was supposed to go to his last year in junior high. Izuku knew that he had to go out soon and buy some school supplies since his parents totally forgotten about their other child and that he goes to school. As he go down the staircase, he overheard a conversation between his dad and Izumi. "Izumi, I have something to tell you, but promise me you won't tell anyone, not even your friends," said Toshi. "Okay, what is it?" asked Izumi. To Izuku's surprise, his dad muscled up and turned into the All Might. "All this time, All Might was my father," he mentally said. Oh my god. My dad is All Might. Izumi said, freaking out. I know you have a lot of questions, my girl, but hear me out, Dad said as All Might. Izuku quietly listened from the staircase as my dad explained the history of OFA and how it's able to be passed on from one bearer to another. He was shocked when he said he got into a fight with AFO and it damaged his lung, causing him to transform for only a limited amount of time. But what shocked him the most was when he offered to pass it on to Izumi. Izumi thought about it, then asked, "But Dad, why not pass it on to Izuku since he doesn't have a quirk?" "Your mother and I talked about it and decided maybe it's best he doesn't because we want at least one of our children to be normal and not risk their lives," said Toshi. Izuku was overwhelmed with emotion upon hearing the news. He tightly gripped the railing of the stairs and began to cry. He left the house quietly and ran until he reached Koba Municipal Beach, which was unfortunately full of garbage. Frustrated and upset, he began kicking the pile of trash until his toes became sore. As he gazed out at the sea, a disturbing thought crossed his mind. If no one will remember me, why bother living? He pondered. Slowly, he walked into the water and allowed himself to sink. As he descended deeper, he opened his eyes for one final glance at the surface. Gradually, he sensed his breath slipping away, suggesting his life was coming to an end. Gradually, he sensed his breath slipping away, suggesting his life was coming to an end. Just as he was ready to come to terms with his fate, he noticed movement in the water. Initially, he assumed it was a fish, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was a figure that resembled a human, but with a shell. As he shut his eyes, the entity swam directly toward him. Upon waking up, Izumi remembered that it was her birthday. She hurriedly went downstairs to join her parents and Bakugo's parents, who were all gathered around a table with a birthday cake at the center. They all greeted her with a happy birthday, but Bakugo's parents noticed that someone was missing. "Hey Inko, where's Izuku?" Mitsuki asked. "He should be here," Inko replied, but she paused when she realized he wasn't. "Izumi, where's Izuku?" Toshi inquired. "I think he's still sleeping. I'll go wake him up," Izumi answered as she headed toward his room. As she went up to his door, she knocked only to get silence. She slowly turned the door knob and opened the door. When she went in and turned on the lights, what she saw in front of her made her scream so loud that she called everyone downstairs to check why she was screaming. When everyone made it to Izuku's room, they all gasped. Everywhere on the ground, the bed and his desk were full of napkins drenched in BLD and medicines. Everyone entered the room and looked in horror. As they looked, Mitsuki picked up a folder that was on the ground and looked through the documents. Once she did, she got very angry. "Ow, Toshi, what the hell are these?" she shouted as she shoved the papers in their face. The papers she was holding are hospital records, supermarket and pharmacy receipts, and job applications. The two Yagis looked at each other with fear and confusion. They don't remember taking Izuku to the hospital. As a matter of fact, they don't remember the last time they spent with Izuku. "Oh my god, we threw away our own son," Inko gasped, then started crying. "Look at these. They all say he suffered major injuries of third-degree burns," Toshi said. As he said that, both Izumi and Bakugo choked on the air. Unfortunately, Mitsuki heard them. "Do you two have something to say?" she asked, glaring at them. They both sighed and decided to come clean. They told them what they'd been doing to him and why they'd been doing it. Masaru walked over and slapped him across his face, shocking everyone. "Why the hell would you do that to your own friend?" he yelled before turning his head to the Yagis. "And you three threw away your own son just because he has no quirk," he said slowly, crying, ashamed of them. The Yagis knew what they did was terrible and unforgiving, so they quickly called in some heroes and police to help find him. Izumi sat on her bed crying that her brother goes missing on both their birthdays, that she took away his life, and that she nearly killed him on many occasions just to change his mind. As she sits, she prayed that wherever he is, he was okay. Slowly Izuku woke up and looked around and noticed he was on some kind of bed. He saw a bunch of machinery and monitors. He looked at the monitors to see someone sitting on one of the chairs. The chair then spun around to reveal a human-like turtle wearing a green mask. The chair then spun around to reveal a human-like turtle wearing a green mask. 13. "Ah, I see you're finally awake," The turtle said half of Izuku was freaking out and the other half was a bit excited. But mostly freaking out. Who are you? Izuku stuttered. Stay calm, my name is Donatello, and you're welcome for saving your life, he responded. Izuku turned around so that his legs are hanging off the bed. Where am I? He asked. Oh, you in New York City, Donnie responded. Izuku felt every part of his body go into freak-out mode. Suddenly, the door opened and it revealed 3 more turtles. One was wearing red, one was wearing orange, and the other was wearing blue. One was wearing red, one was wearing orange, and the other was wearing blue. Oh hey man, oh hey man. Glad to see you awake, said the turtle with the red headband. Who and what are you all? Izuku asked. Hey, calm down. My name's Leonardo and these 2 are Raphael and Michelangelo, the blue one said. Izuku slowly got up and tried to process everything. You said I was in New York, how is that possible? Izuku asked. Technically, we were testing out our new turtle sub near the coast of Japan. Then we saw you just sinking in the water, Donnie explained. Man, what happened? Did you get knocked off a ship or something? Mikey asked. Izuku lowered his head. I was trying to end my life, Izuku flat out said. The 4 turtles gasped. When they asked why he did that, he explained how he was quirkless and that his own family ignored him like he was never born. The brothers felt bad for Izuku. Leo then brought his brothers to a corner so they could have a private meeting. So what are we gonna do? Mickey asked. I say we book a plane for this kid and send him back home since he's already fine, said Donnie. To where? You heard him, his own family deserted him and probably not even looking for him, said Ralph. Maybe instead we should care for him, Leo said. The brothers looked at him as if he was crazy. Look, we train him the arts of ninjutsu so when he goes back to Japan, he would know how to defend himself, Leo said. We should talk to Sir Splinter, Ralph said. I know and I agree, Splinter said behind them. The 4 of them and Izuku screamed at his sudden appearance. The 4 of them and Izuku screamed at his sudden appearance. Dad, how long were you there? Mikey asked. Dad? Izuku asked in his mind. From the time the boy woke up, and I think it's best we help him unless that's what he wants, Splinter said. They all turned to Izuku for his answer. He let down his head and began to think. If I could learn ninjutsu from them, I could be a hero in my country, but my family. Izuku stopped talking as he started to remember how his family treated him. He turned towards the turtles and Splinter and gave them a determined smile. I'll do it. Teach me the arts of ninjutsu, Izuku said. And so, Izumi-Midoriya adventure began. While being in New York, Izuku underwent the training of the turtles while in the sewers with them. First would sit down and watch them use their weapons. He watched how Leo used his swords, Donnie his bow staff, Mikey with his nunchucks, and Ralph with his sais. While watching Izuku scribe notes on different ninja techniques and combos. Splinter would even give him history lessons and rigorous training to improve muscles since he was a bit too skinny. Soon after, Izuku was able to catch on. The brothers watched as he wielded the weapons and performed many stunts. Splinter was impressed by how he was able to accelerate at a wondrous rate. Izuku didn't even stop there. He would use other weapons such as the tonfas, the odachi, or even the kusari fundo. It's not just training he did. Izuku would even have fun with the turtle family. Mickey taught him how to make different types of pizzas while he taught him how to make katsudon and many other Japanese cuisines. Ralph and Leo taught him how to parkour and ride the skateboard. Izuku has always been afraid of riding it, but after a month of training, he was able to get the hang of it. Donnie, even though the brothers find it annoying, showed him how he creates his inventions. Sometimes he would give Izuku some instructions and watch him build stuff. He basically turned Izuku into a Donnie number 2. Year later, Izuku was currently playing video games until Splinter called him into a room. He went inside to see everyone sitting around a star circle at different points. Hello, Izuku, Splinter said. What's going on? Izuku asked. Izuku, it's about time we share our power with you, Splinter said. Powers? Izuku asked. Izuku, you know we are descendants of the Hamato clan, right? Asked Splinter. Of course. I read up on them in one of our history books, Izuku stated. Good, then have you heard of the Hamato Ninpō? Splinter asked. I only heard little about it. I just know it's the greatest traditional art used by them, Izuku responded. And we are going to teach you that art, Splinter said while smiling. Izuku was shocked by what he said. Splinter instructed Izuku to step into the center of the circle. Once he did, Splinter and the turtles held hands and closed their eyes. Suddenly different color energy started to radiate from everyone. Suddenly different color energy started to radiate from everyone. All the energy started to come together into the circle and Izuku was embedded into a bright, colorful light. He then saw the forms of the turtles and the powers they're giving him. As the light went down, Izuku kneeled and tried to catch his breath. As the light went down, Izuku kneeled and tried to catch his breath. The turtles and Splinter went to check if he was alright. You okay, Izuku? Leo asked. Izuku slowly got up and opened his eyes. Once they fully opened, his eyes changed shape and glowed different colors. Once they fully opened, his eyes changed shape and glowed different colors. 7. Think of it like the Sharingan. I feel awesome, Izuku said. Everyone cheered seeing the new member of the Hamato clan. Izuku looked in the mirror and looked at his eyes. He observed how it had shaped into the symbol of the Hamato clan. Once he blinked, the symbol reverted back to its original green self. Now that you possess the Hamato Ninpō, the boys will train you to master the powers they have shared with you, said Splinter. Now that you possess the Hamato Ninpō, the boys will train you to master the powers they have shared with you, said Splinter. Izuku looked around and the boys gave him a thumbs up. Izuku smiled knowing that it was time for him to shine. Next day, Izuku went to the training room and met the turtles holding their weapons. As the leader of the team, I'm gonna teach you how to use the powers of the Hamato Ninpō, Leo said. He then laid out different gardening tools on the ground. What am I gonna do with these? Izuku asked. Have you heard of the ninja saying, anything can be a weapon? Ralph asked. Izuku answered. Technically one of the powers of the Ninpō is weapon formation, Donnie said. So you're gonna turn these ordinary garden tools into ninja weapons, Mikey stated. Izuku looked at the tools unsure of it. He took up the 2 blue trowels and looked at Leo. He closed his eyes and tried to picture twin katanas. Blue energy started as his eyes formed the blue Hamato symbol. Suddenly the trowels morphed into katanas. The boys were so shocked that they dropped their weapons. Izuku looked at what he did, jumped in joy, and high-fived everyone. For the rest of the day, Izuku formed weapons with the tools. If he wants sword weapons, his eyes turn blue. If he wants 𝐕𝗔 or 𝗵𝗏, his eyes turn red. If wants a bow staff, his eyes turn purple. And if he wants nunchucks or chain weapons, they turn orange. A few months later, Izuku learned how to use mystic powers with his weapons. He learned that depending on the weapon he makes, the powers are different. When he makes an odachi, he can create portals to different places, although that took him longer to master. When he makes twin katana, he can use his sword as a point of focus and can teleport himself or anyone holding one of his swords to the location of the other. When he forms 𝗵𝗏s, he can create an overlaying force field, replicating his form. When he forms 𝗵𝗏s, he can create an overlaying force field, replicating his form. This increases the power of his punches and works as a shield. He can also simply create a giant field version of himself, change the size of the field's limbs as he wishes, and even give the form more limbs. With Twin 𝗓, Izuku can dispense duplicates of himself at an unknown limit. Each clone shows no decrease in strength and speed. However, these clones are frail and if damaged enough, will disappear, briefly leaving behind a red shade of where they first disappeared before completely fading out. He can create a kusari fundo with a sphere weight with spiked ridges. The sphere becomes a cackling flaming head when Izuku wills it, and he can move however he wills it. It is also capable of lifting enormous objects many times larger than him. But if he forms nunchucks, he can wrap them around his opponents almost endlessly and throw them around. But if he forms nunchucks, he can wrap them around his opponents almost endlessly and throw them around with a bow staff. He can create or link with variations of devices, even improving them. With a bow staff, he can create or link with variations of devices, even improving them. Months later, Izuku had a bag on his back. He was ready to return to Japan. He wishes he could use the power of the 𝗧𝗏, but he hasn't mastered overseas travels yet. He packed up his belongings and got ready to leave. Before he goes, the turtles and Splinter went to say goodbye. "I can't tell you how much I appreciate you all taking care of me and teaching me," Izuku said. "It was our pleasure, Izuku." "It's good to know that the Hamato name will carry on," said Splinter. The turtles then formed a line with an item in their hand. "This can help you get around. I designed it myself," Mikey said as his gift. "Wow, thanks Mike," said Izuku as he performed a secret handshake. "Wow, thanks Mike," said Izuku as he performed a secret handshake. Ralph walked up to him and handed him his gift. "Keep getting stronger, man," Ralph said as he fist bumped him. "Keep getting stronger, man," Ralph said as he fist bumped him. Donnie came up next and handed him a small device. A phone. Izuku asked. "A waterproof turtle phone. I designed it so you can make endless calls without having to worry about cellular data. It also has extra features such as games, a camera, a tracking app, internet surfing, and other things. And I added our contacts into it," Donnie said while feeling proud of himself. Izuku laughed at how smug he can be. Lastly, Leo went up and handed him a wrapped-up package. "What is this?" asked Izuku. "When you settle down back home, open it," Leo said holding out his hand. Izuku looked at his hand and shook it. "Thank you, dude," Izuku said. They then heard a train horn coming, meaning it was time for him to go. "Remember, the location of our spare bases is saved on your T-phone. You will meet a human friend of ours there who can help you get settled in," Donnie said. "Thanks guys. I'm gonna miss you all," Izuku said. "You're welcome to visit any time," said Splinter. As the six of them shared one last group hug, the train came around the corner. Izuku's eyes turned orange and summoned a kusari fundo in his hands. He swung it, threw it, and latched it onto the train. While the train took him away, Izuku shouted one last thing to the turtle family. "Byakuya," Izuku shouted. Once Izuku was out of sight, Leo turned to Mikey. "Byakuya," he asked. "I told him if he's gonna fight crime, he's gotta have a cool catchphrase," Mikey said. Izuku sat on top of the train, browsing the web on his new T-phone on the latest news in Japan. Suddenly he heard the conductor say they were arriving at the airport. As the train halted, he jumped off it onto the roof of the airport. He used his ninja stealth and hid from security. He looked around and saw the plane that was said to fly to Japan. By blending in with the baggage, he was able to sneak inside the storage area. He then settled in among the baggage and waited for the plane to take off. "It's gonna take me at least 13 hours to get back. Good thing Mikey packed me some pizza puffs," Izuku said as he took out one of the boxes and started eating. He took out his phone and opened his contacts list. He then saw the 4 contacts to the turtles. He smiled and went back to surfing the web as he felt the plane go in the air. Back in Japan, Izumi was sitting in front of her table drawing a design for her hero costume. Her dad then came in to see how she's doing. "Are you almost done?" Toshi asked. He noticed something beside her drawing. Once he took a good look at it, he felt his heartbeat and felt his eyes get a bit watery. Izumi turned around and noticed the look on her father's face. "I want to make use of what Izuku left behind. I want to wear it in his name," Izumi said as she felt her own eyes. "Water. Come on. We still don't know if he's dead." "I bet he's still alive," Toshi said trying to cheer her up. "You don't know that, Dad. He's been gone for about a year and all because of us," Izumi said as tears started to fall. Toshi hugged her as they both started to cry. As he was about to leave, he turned back to her. "By the way, when you rescued that girl from the giant robot at the entrance exam, that showed a lot of guts," said Toshi. "Izuku would have done it even if he was scared," Izumi said smiling while still crying. Toshi smiled and closed the door. He leaned back on it and began to think. "I'm so sorry, Izuku. I know you're alive, so please come home so we can be a family again," Toshi mentally said. Izuku was currently sleeping on some baggage. He woke up at the sound of turbulence in the plane. "I must be near," said Izuku. He took up his stuff and went to the side of the planes where the landing gear was. The landing gear of the plane began to lower. Izuku took the chance to hang onto the wheel. Once the wheel lowered, Izuku looked out the distance to see Japan. "I'm home," Izuku said, breathing in the fresh air. Timing himself perfectly, he jumped off and activated the gliding system Donnie installed in his bag. As he glided, he ran his hand in the ocean, feeling it, and pulled out his T-phone. He turned on the GPS to see where he was going. He noticed that underneath him was a tunnel to his destination. He detached the glider and dived into the water. He swam towards a sewer pipe and went inside until he was able to get to the surface in the sewer. He looked around the place to see different tunnels. He took out his phone and looked back at the GPS. He followed the map until he ended up in front of a wall. "This doesn't make sense. The map said it's this way." Izuku said he looked around until he thought of something crazy. He looked at the pipes above him and decided to pull each of them until he pulled one, which turns out to be a SW. The wall in front of him opened up. "Secret entrance. Not bad, Donnie," Izuku said as he went inside. As he went in, the door closed. He found a light SW and switched it on, revealing the empty base. Not bad. "I can upgrade it a bit later," said Izuku. "Yup, you can do that later," he heard someone say. On ninja instincts, he summoned a bow staff and prepared for a fight. "Who's there?" Izuku shouted. Suddenly a man came out of one of the rooms. "Easy, kid, it's okay. I'm with the turtles," the man said. Izuku lowered his weapons and gave him a curious look. "Who are you?" Izuku asked. "I'm Max. The turtles' friend April called me to help welcome you here. I'm gonna help you with your living arrangements and your job," he said. "Job?" Izuku asked. "Well, yeah. You gotta do something to earn money, right? Follow me," Marx instructed him. Izuku walked with him towards a wall. He pushed a loose brick on it and it opened up, revealing an elevator. As they went in, Max pushed the top floor button and the elevator took them up. The door opened to reveal some kind of restaurant. And it wasn't just some restaurant, it was a pizza restaurant. "Welcome to the newly built Pizza Hut, Izuku," Max said. Izuku looked around and observed the place. He used to go to Pizza Hut when he was younger but stopped due to his parents forgetting about him. It wasn't opened yet since it was still early in the morning. When he turned around, Max had a uniform in his hands. "Go take a shower and put these on and I will tell you how you can get started," Max ordered him. Izuku took the clothes and went out back where he found a bathroom with a shower in it. Once he showered, he walked out wearing his very own Pizza Hut uniform. "I gotta admit I look good in this," Izuku said. "Hell yeah, you do. Anyway, here's your salary form," Max said as he handed Izuku a sheet of paper. Izuku observed it and was shocked at the amount, but it's only if he does a good job. Max then showed Izuku the different positions he can work as: a cashier, pizza cook, and 𝗕𝗏𝗏. Once Izuku understood, he got straight to work. Later, Izuku has been working hard at the restaurant all day. Being the youngest employee, the other workers couldn't help but feel impressed at how determined he is. He greets everyone who comes in with a warm welcome, he never asks for a break, and he's especially good at cooking. Secretly, Max knew because of his ninja skills, since when he uses a knife, he slices up everything in a flash. He allows him to use skateboards when he's serving tables because the kids seem to like his skills and the adults find it entertaining. Right now, it was around 8 o'clock in the night and Izuku was currently sweeping the outside of the shop. While sweeping, Max came out of the store ready to go home. He handed me 2 things. The keys to the store and a black card. "What is this?" Izuku asked. "O'Neill that I should give you this to start off on money. There are about 100,000 yen inside of it along with your pay for today," Max said. Izuku looked at the card and smiled. He was finally being noticed by people. Once Max left, Izuku continued to sweep. While sweeping, he noticed someone staring at the menu outside. Since it was a bit dark, he had to move a bit closer to see. As he got closer, he started to notice the brown hair and pink chinks on the person's face. They were then revealed to be a girl. Excuse me, but are you okay?" Izuku asked. The girl turned around and saw Izuku standing there. She then noticed the type of uniform he was wearing. "Oh, I'm sorry. I was just looking at the menu. I didn't mean to intrude," the girl said, waving her hand. "It's okay, you're not intruding. I was just closing up shop," Izuku said, trying to calm her down. The girl laughed in embarrassment. Then suddenly her stomach started to rumble. She looked at Izuku with a red-turned face. "Sorry. I haven't eaten anything yet," the girl said while feeling embarrassed. Then suddenly Izuku's stomach rumbled. "Neither have I," Izuku said, scratching his head. Izuku then had an idea. "Hey, why don't you come and have pizza with me?" asked Izuku. "I don't know, I don't even have that much money," the girl responded. "No need. It's on me," reassured Izuku. The girl's face heated up at how generous he is. "Thank you, she said. "Izuku. Izuku Midoriya," he said, tipping his hat. She giggled at how formal he is. "I'm Achiko Uraraka," she said. Izuku then led her inside. They went into the kitchen where a flat layout of dough was on the counter. Izuku asked Uraraka what type of topping she liked. Once she told him, he got to work quickly. He took up a knife, some cheese, and pepperoni in his hands. He threw the two foods in the air while Uraraka looked at him as if he was crazy. He jumped into the air and sliced up everything into tiny pieces. Uraraka looked at him, astonished at his skills. Izuku placed the rest of the toppings before putting them in the oven. While waiting, they decided to get to know each other while sitting at one of the dining tables. "So are your parents worried about you staying out this late?" asked Izuku. "Not really. I live alone," said Uraraka. "Really? Since I'm going to UA, my parents chose to make me live near the school," she said. "Whoa, you're going to UA? That's so cool. What's your quirk?" Izuku asked, surprised. "Zero gravity. It allows me to make whatever I touch weightless," Uraraka said. "That's cool. That can be very useful for rescues in the hero department." Izuku said, "What about you? What's your quirk?" Uraraka asked. Izuku froze in place. He can't really tell her that he received training from mutant turtles and gained mystic powers. "Technically I'm quirkless, but I have received some martial arts training from very skilled people," Izuku said, trying not to act suspicious. "Wow. That's so cool. All I can do is float and drop things. I don't really know any hand-to-hand combat," Uraraka said with her head down. Izuku felt bad. She wants to be a hero, but she was doubting herself. Suddenly, they heard the oven timer ding. Izuku walked to the kitchen and placed the pizza in a box and brought it to the table. Once he opened it, Uraraka's mouth watered, but when she looked closely, she noticed that it was still a whole pizza. "Aren't we gonna eat this in slices?" Uraraka asked, confused. A big smirk appeared on his face. He grabbed a butcher knife near him and threw the air, cutting it up into equal slices. Once they landed back in the box, Uraraka applauded. The two of them ate while talking more about each other. Once they finished eating and helped themselves to refreshments for one of the fridges, Izuku said bye to Uraraka. "Well, thanks for the meal. I really enjoyed," said Uraraka. "You can come back anytime." "I wouldn't mind," Izuku said. Uraraka waved to him and said goodbye and walked away. As he watched her disappear from sight, Izuku closed the door and locked it. He walked over to the table where he and Uraraka were eating and took up the empty pizza box. He noticed something on the top. There was a phone number, address, and a message saying, "Call me." His legs felt like jelly and his face heated up. He wasted no time taking out his T-phone and adding the number and address to it so he can remember. "So cool," Izuku said as he finished cleaning up. After he was done cleaning up, he grabbed the spare futon Max left for him and took the elevator down to the lair. Since he lived in a sewer with the turtles for more than a year, he's used to the smell. He removed his clothes so that he was only wearing a white shirt and underwear. Once he sat down on his futon, he opened up his bag and checked for anything else he took with him. He dug through his bag until he found the package Leo gave him. He then remembered that Leo told him about opening it when he reached back to Japan. He ripped the package open to see what was in there. Suddenly a small box fell out of it. Once he opened it, it revealed a green ring and a small slip of paper. Once he opened it, it revealed a green ring and a small slip of paper. Once he opened it, it revealed a green ring and a small slip of paper. Izuku took up the ring and slipped it on. He took up the note and read it out loud. Donnie made this ring from nanotech. I helped with the design, he did the programming. We thought this may help you when you are out fighting crime. Just say, turtle power. Izuku read. Suddenly the ring on his finger started to blink. Suddenly, black nanobots came out of the bottom and wrapped around his body. Suddenly, black nanobots came out of the bottom and wrapped around his body. It's something like this. He then looked at his whole body. He was wearing a black and green ninja suit. It had the Hamato symbol on his chest and the turtle's symbol on his forehead. It had the Hamato symbol on his chest and the turtle's symbol on his forehead. Izuku could feel tears coming from his eyes. He had powers, his very own hero costume, a job he can enjoy, and he made a friend. He pulled the mask off his face and looked at it. I'll show the world I can be a hero. I'm gonna make sure that the ones who I used to call my family feel regret for abandoning me, Izuku said as he placed back on the mask. Just call me 𝐒𝐁𝐵, the hero in a half-shell. Weeks later tonight, a group of men was currently robbing an orphanage and holding the children hostage. The police and heroes were outside trying to apprehend the situation, trying to listen to the criminals' demand. Look, we'll listen to your demands. Just don't hurt the children, Kamui Woods shouted through a microphone. Good. If you give us 5 billion yen in the next 10 minutes, we'll let the little brats go, but if not, oh well, the leader said. The heroes were getting scared. They knew that they wouldn't be able to do it in time. Inside, the children were holding on to each other in fear as 4 henchmen aimed their guns at them. Suddenly, without a sound, 2 orange glowing chains wrapped around 2 of the men and pulled them up to the roof. The children and the other 2 men looked up to see nothing but darkness. Then, to their surprise, the men that got pulled up fell down to the ground knocked out. Who's there? One of the men shouted as he aimed his gun toward the ceiling. He then heard a sweep behind him. He turned around to see the other man, knocked out cold. The man started to shake in his shoes as he looked around. Show yourself, he said. He looked up to the ceiling again, only to meet with glowing orange eyes. He screamed so loud, he ran out of the building in fear. The boss looked at him in confusion and went inside. He was shocked to see 3 of his men on the ground. He took up one of the guns and aimed it at the kids. This would have been over quickly, but, he said as he aimed at the kids. They all screamed in fear as he was about to shoot, but before he could fire, a blue sword flew out of nowhere and slashed the gun from his hands. Then suddenly blue lighting teleported itself to the sword, revealing Izuku wearing his ninja suit and mask. Who are you? The guy asked in fear. Izuku looked at his face and activated tech jutsu. I'm a hero in a half-shell, Izuku before knocking him out with his bow staff. On the outside, All Might and Eraser had arrived. How's everything going inside? Aizawa asked. It's been quiet for about 10 minutes, one of the officers told him. I got this, All Might says before unleashing a Carolina smash on the door. The heroes followed in after to pursue the criminals, only to find them knocked out and tied up and the kids untied. They looked towards the wall to see a Japanese marking engraved on it. Looks like he struck again, Aizawa said. For a vigilante, he does an incredible job, said All Might. At least this makes the job a bit easier. We need to be ready to take the class to the USJ tomorrow, Aizawa said. All Might nodded his head while watching the criminals being taken away by the police. They then heard cheering from the kids. They turned around to see them looking up. They turned around and looked up to see a silhouette of someone perching on a building. I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm gonna prove to you all that I'm not the same quirkless kid as before, Izuku said mentally. 5. I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm gonna prove to you all that I'm not the same quirkless kid as before, Izuku said mentally. The 2 heroes watched him disappear from sight, knowing that he was too far to catch. He looks about 15-16, All Might said, yet he's using his skills for vigilantism instead of enrolling at UA. Aizawa said yep. Izuku made a reputation as the typical mysterious ninja teen, the hero in a half-shell, carapace. Ever since he got his suit, in the night he would go out and fight crime from the shadows. He made his first debut when he stopped a man from raping a quirkless woman in an alleyway. But since he's a vigilante, he's technically breaking the law, so whenever the heroes try to arrest him, he would either use his smoke bombs and portal jutsu to escape or use his smash jutsu and create clones to distract them while he makes his getaway. When he's not carapace, he's Izumi Midoriya, the #1 Pizza Hut employee. He does exceptional work when he working. Thanks to Mikey's pizza-making technique he learned in New York, he made Pizza Hut one of the most popular restaurants in the city. In his spare time, he would either work out, play video games, or even do some schoolwork. Ever since 𝗬𝗧𝗏 told him she got enrolled in UA, she would tell him what they learned. So basically he had his own study curriculum. Thanks to the money Max gave him and the junk he got from the beach he cleaned up, he was able to upgrade the lair. He would use space-time jutsu to teleport them either to the lair or the junkyard, and tech jutsu to fix stuff like old fridges, microwaves, monitors, or even old game consoles. He would even use spare Pizza Hut boxes to make furniture such as chairs, tables, etc. He would even use spare Pizza Hut boxes to make furniture such as chairs, tables, etc. As Izuku entered his lair, he deactivated the suit, crashed on the couch, and turned on the TV. 18 As Izuku entered his lair, he deactivated the suit, crashed on the couch, and turned on the TV. He then received a notification on his T-phone. He opened it to see 𝗬𝗧𝗏 texting him. B. The icons that show only appear on one other phone. This means Izuku can't see the icon for his name and 𝗬𝗧𝗏 can't see her icon because they set the icons for each other. Messages: Growing Heart, Bare Face, Growing Heart, 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Have you seen the news? The vigilante struck again. Green Heart Pizza, Green Heart Izuku. He saved a bunch of orphans from some criminals. Growing Heart, Bare Face, Growing Heart, 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Even though what he's doing is illegal, the city should give him some props for a good job, you know. Green Heart Pizza, Green Heart Izuku. If only it was that easy, 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Growing Heart, Bare Face, Growing Heart, 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Well, I'm going to bed. I gotta be up and ready for a surprise trip tomorrow. Good night, Green Heart Pizza, Green Heart Izuku. Okay. Good night then. Izuku put away his phone and went to bed himself, not knowing that the next day, carapace is going to be needed big time. Class 1A was currently on a bus on their way to the USJ. While the bus was driving, they chose to make a conversation. Hey Izumi, I can't help but notice but your powers looked a bit like All Might, Azui said while putting her finger to her lips. Really, I didn't notice that, she said as she scratched the back of her head. No one except the teachers, Izumi, and her family knows that she's the daughter of All Might. While they talked, 𝗬𝗧𝗏 with a blush on her face was busy texting on her phone until a certain pink-haired girl took a peek at her phone. Ashido then noticed the green heart icons beside a person's name. That made an evil smile appear on her face. That your boyfriend, 𝗬𝗧𝗏? Ashido asked, scaring her. She quickly closed her phone and put it away. And no, it's just a friend of mine from Pizza Hut, 𝗬𝗧𝗏 said, embarrassed. But then explain the green hearts beside his name, Ashido said while smirking. Suddenly the bus stopped in front of a giant building, saving 𝗬𝗧𝗏 from more embarrassment. Everyone got off the bus and entered the building to see hero number 13 waiting at the entrance. Hello everyone. My name is 13 and I'll be your instructor for today. You will learn different methods of rescue training, said 13. Before they could do anything, a black void opened in the center. As it got bigger, different people walked out of it. Whoa, they even got fake villains to fight, Kirishima said in excitement. Suddenly Aizawa and 13 went to the front getting their quirks ready. Those aren't fake, they're real, Aizawa shouted. A huge portal then opened up, sending all the students to different areas. Izuku was currently serving tables in the restaurant. While delivering a pizza to a table, he overheard a conversation between two guys from one of the tables. Man, I can't believe they left us behind, said one of them. I know, right? We could have been among the group to attack the USJ, said the other. I heard that All Might's Class 1A is gonna be there, the other said while laughing. Izuku nearly dropped the pizza in his hand. He quickly gave the pizza to the customer and went to Max. Once he told Max the situation, Max allowed him to go. Izuku then ran out the back door. Turtle power, Izuku shouted as his suit came out from his ring. He used his scarf and swung himself like Spider-Man and headed toward the As Izuku reached the USJ, he noticed that the doors were locked shut. This is nothing, Izuku said as he activates his space-time jutsu. He summoned his Odachi and opened a portal inside. As he went in, he hid behind some bushes and observed the situation. He noticed the students are in different places while the teachers were fighting. He even saw Izumi and Bakugo, which made him clench his fist. "It doesn't matter right now, I gotta get everyone out of here," said Izuku. He summoned his twin katanas and threw one of them toward the boat at the shipwreck zone. Using his powers, he teleported to where he threw the sword to see Mineta, Azui, and Izumi. "Hey, you're that vigilante," Izumi said. Izuku didn't know how to feel. Happy to see her sister or stay angry at her. Right now it doesn't matter. "Carapace, nice to meet you," he said. He looked in the water to see the villains swimming towards them. He looked around to see Ida, Kaminari, Kyoka, and Yaoyorozu fighting villains. "The three of you, grab onto my scarf and hold on tight," Izuku instructed. Not having any other choice, they did what he said and held on. Izuku threw his sword over to where the other students were. Once it struck the ground, "How did we?" Mineta asked before being cut off by Izuku. "Space-time jutsu," said Izuku as he turned to the villains. His eyes turned red as he summoned his Seius. He duplicated himself, creating multiple clones and attacking the villains at once. The four students looked in awe at his power. "He's fast," said Mineta. "He's strong," said Yaoyorozu. "He's so cool," said Kaminari. Once all the villains were down, Izuku's eyes returned green and he turned to Ida. "You, the guy with the rocket legs. I need you to head to UA and warn the teachers," said Izuku. "But how?" "They locked us in here," said Mineta. Izuku smirked underneath his mask. The student's eyes were wide open when he summoned his Odachi and opened a portal. "This will take you outside. Run straight to UA and get help," Izuku said. "Why didn't you just make one directly to UA?" asked Kyoka. "'Cause I can only make portals to places I've been. I need proper coordinates." "Now go," said Izuku. One by one, the 7 students went in until Izumi stopped and looked at him. "Earlier, your eyes turned green. I know those eyes, 'cause they're just like mine. Tell me, are you who I think you are?" Izumi asked with tears building up in her eyes. Izuku stayed silent. He didn't want people to know who he is, not even the family who neglected him. "I don't know what you mean." "Now go," Izuku said as he pushed her through the portal. As the portal closed, Izuku felt a tear roll down his cheek. Even though he still hated all the things they did to him, deep down he thinks he still misses his younger twin sister. His ninja vibes then felt something coming behind him. Turned around to see a guy with hands all over him approaching a familiar girl on the ground wearing a skin-tight pink and black suit. Izuku looked closely and was shocked to see it was Uraraka. "I guess all might will come quicker if I kill one of these worthless students," the guy said as he began to reach out for her. Time went in slow motion for Izuku. Upon instinct, he took a shuriken out of his pocket. He knew he'd regret his decision, but he had no choice. He ran full speed towards the villain and aimed the shuriken at the villain's hand. Once he threw it and it hit his target, he lifted up Uraraka bridal style and carried her to a safe distance while the villain was holding his hand in pain. While running, he noticed 3 boys in the distance: Kirishima, Todoroki, and the boy he didn't want to see again, Bakugo. Not wanting to stay and chat, he gently put Uraraka and turned around. As he was about to leave, he felt something tugging his scarf. He turned around to see Uraraka grabbing it. "You're not actually gonna go back to that villain, are you?" Uraraka asked, concerned. "Until the heroes get here, I have to keep the leader at bay," he said as he yanked his scarf out of her hand. As Izuku jumped away, Uraraka couldn't help but notice his green eyes and his voice. Then suddenly everything started to make sense in her head. The green eyes, the voice, the ninjutsu, and only one person popped up in her head. "Izuku," Uraraka mentally said in shock. Izuku landed in front of the boss of the villains who just pulled the shuriken from his hand. Well, if it isn't the young ninja vigilante himself, Carapace, said Shigaraki, and if it isn't the ugly crusty leader of the villains himself, Izuku retorted back. Shigaraki gritted his teeth in anger. "I was saving this to kill All Might, but you will be a fine test subject," Shigaraki said as he snapped his finger. Suddenly a purple portal opened and a big bulking creature walked out of it. As Izuku looked at it, he couldn't help but feel shaking in his legs. "What the hell is that thing?" Izuku shouted in his mind. "Nomu, kill him," Shigaraki commanded the monster. The Nomu then rushed towards the Izuku at full speed. Izuku quickly backflipped to avoid the punches. Once he noticed one of its fists was stuck in the ground, he summoned his katanas and dashed for the monster, slicing both its arms off. Once he noticed one of its fists was stuck in the ground, he summoned his katanas and dashed for the monster, slicing both its arms off. Everyone, including Bakugo, was shocked at the brutal attack he did. But then they noticed that monster was slowly regenerating its arms. So it has a regeneration quirk. Okay, so I just need to keep attacking until it can't regenerate again, Izuku said mentally. He summoned his tonfas and slammed his fists together. Power Smash Jutsu, he shouted as red glowing fists formed on him. Power Smash Jutsu, he shouted as red glowing fists formed on him. Just imagine Izuku is all might in this scene and ignore the stomach damage. I don't have time to go into full details. As the beast landed on the ground, Izuku charged up his Ninpō energy and smashed his tonfas together. Suddenly, instead of just red, his arms glowed from red, blue, orange, and purple simultaneously. He ran straight to the monster. Remember this saying, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, he shouted as he punched the Nomu out of the building. Remember this saying, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, he shouted as he punched the Nomu out of the building. Once the monster was gone, Izuku struggled to get up. He summoned his 𝗓𝗏𝗍 to help support him. TMNT. I used a lot of Hamato energy, Izuku said. He then heard Shigaraki yelling in anger. Eno, that was supposed to beat all might, you little brat, you cheated, Shigaraki said as he ran towards Izuku, trying to reach for him. Izuku tried to run, but he still felt tired. He then heard gunshots and looked up to see the hero snipe, shooting Shigaraki in the legs. Izumi, Kaminari, Kyoka, Todoroki, Ida, Azui, and Mineta returned with all the heroes, including All Might. Ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry has arrived, Kaminari shouted. Shigaraki escaped through a portal knowing he had lost. While the heroes arrested the remaining villains, All Might and Aizawa, who were injured during the fight, walked up to the students who got help. How did you all escape? The doors were all locked, Aizawa asked. He saved us, Azui said as she pointed at Izuku. All the heroes turned around to see the green ninja getting up with his sword. Aizawa was about to use his scarf to capture him until he noticed Nizu walking toward the boy. Once Izuku was able to stand up, he noticed the small person in front of him. I must say, you're pretty powerful for a young boy, Nizu said. Thanks, Izuku said nervously. Nizu looked at his costume and noticed the symbol on it. That symbol, it's from the Hamato clan, right? Nizu asked. Izuku was shocked by what he just asked. He thought only a minimum of people knew of it. How did you? Asked Izuku. I happen to have a rat friend living in New York when I traveled there once, Nizu said. Before Izuku could respond, he noticed the heroes crowding around him. Not wanting to get caught, he used the 𝗓𝗏𝗍 and made a portal underneath him so he could escape. Nizu stood there with only one thing in mind. So, Yoshi, you chose a human successor, huh? It's been 2 days since the USJ attack. The school gave everyone a week off from school to recover from it. Uraraka was currently in her apartment thinking about 2 things that happened on the day the villains attacked. One was that Izuku was carapace and that she didn't do much to help. She didn't have the guts to talk to him even though he left her texts asking if she was okay. To get her mind off things, she decided to take a walk to get her mind off things. She placed on some clothes and went out. While walking, she noticed that she was right beside Takoba Municipal Beach Park. Wow, I still can't believe this is the same beach that used to be a huge junkyard, Uraraka said, admiring the view. Wow, I still can't believe this is the same beach that used to be a huge junkyard, Uraraka said, admiring the view. While looking, she noticed someone on the beach. As she looked closely, her eyes widened, seeing Izuku shirtless while practicing some kicks and flips. At first, she blushed at how muscular and ripped he is but shook it off. Desperate for answers, she ran straight to Izuku. Hey, Izuku, Uraraka shouted from the distance. Izuku stopped what he was doing and turned around to Uraraka. Oh hey Uraraka, what's up? Izuku said, wiping his face with a towel. Before Uraraka could speak, she realized something. Wait, I can't just flat out say that you're carapace. I need to go slow, she mentally said. Nothing much. So what are you doing? She said, trying not to sound so suspicious. Just doing my daily training, said Izuku. Uraraka then decided to test him. Training for what? She asked. Izuku froze in place. for self-defense. Gotta stay in shape, Izuku said, trying to make an excuse. Uraraka eyed him, and then an idea popped into her head. If it's okay, can I watch you train? Uraraka asked him while a tiny blush appeared on her face. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise. He remembered how he sat by and watched the turtles train, and he follows in their footsteps. Then an idea popped into his head. Okay, but instead, how about I teach you some moves to go with it? Izuku asked while scratching his head. Uraraka's eyes widened as she remembered the USJ. She didn't do much to help, and she never had any combat training before going to UA. She clenched her fist and looked at Izuku. I'll do it. Please teach me, she said while bowing her head. Izuku smiled at her determination and at his will to teach. Uraraka, from this day, I'm gonna teach you the basic arts of ninjutsu and how to become a kunoichi, Izuku said, holding out his fist for a fist bump. Uraraka looked at it and smiled as she fist bumped him. Thank you, Carapace, Uraraka said with a sly smile. Izuku slipped onto the sand in shock, making him fall onto his back. How did you? Asked Izuku. Your voice sounded so familiar at the USJ, and you're the same one who told me you do martial arts, Uraraka said while holding her hips. Izuku lowered his head in shame, knowing that he needed to do a better job at hiding his identity. But can you still train me? I promise not to tell anyone. I'm really thankful for did at the USJ, so please, she asked with puppy dog eyes. All Izuku could do was chuckle and nod his head. Uraraka spent most of the day watching and mimicking Izuku's ninja moves. Normally she would trip and slip in the sand, but Izuku was surprised at how much of a fast learner she was. As the day ended, Izuku decided to walk Uraraka to her apartment. As they reached the doorway, they said their goodbyes. I guess I'll see you tomorrow for another lesson, said Izuku. I guess we will, Uraraka said. The two of them stood in silence for a while, not knowing what to say. Izuku then thought of something. Hey, on the day before you go back to school, instead of training, do you want to hang out at the beach? Just the two of us? Izuku asked with a fully red face. Uraraka felt her heart jump as if it was shocked by electricity. She slowly breathed in and out so that she doesn't pass out. Okay. I'd love to hang out with you, Uraraka said while pulling the strands of her hair. See, cool. Well, see you tomorrow, Izuku said, waving her goodbye. Uraraka went inside and closed the door. Izuku leaned on her door from the outside while Uraraka leaned on her door from the inside. He just asked her me out on a date, both of them mentally shouted. A few days later, for the next few days, Uraraka would meet up with Izuku and he would teach her the arts of ninjutsu. He even showed her his lair where he lives, since she knows who he is and his mystic abilities. One day, Izuku gave her a hand fan and explained to her how to use tessenjutsu by using paper hand fans. She may have messed up a few times by accidentally hitting Izuku in the head or his face, but over time, she was able to throw and catch the fan like a boomerang. All in all, they both had fun for the past few days. Now it was the day the two have been waiting for. The fun beach day. Izuku asked Uraraka to. He texted her the scheduled time at about 12 midday. Luckily for Izuku, Max let him take the day off since Izuku has a date. It was now 11:45 a.m. and Izuku was currently setting up a table and 2 chairs on the sand. He brought drinks, ice cream, and a box of pizza with the same toppings he and Uraraka had the first time they met. He brought drinks, ice cream, and a box of pizza with the same toppings he and Uraraka had the first time they met. 5. As he placed the last ice cream and drinks in the cooler, he sat down on the chair and checked the time on his T-phone. It already said 12 o'clock. I wonder if she's still coming, Izuku asked out loud. Suddenly he felt something come up behind him. Before he could turn around and see who it was, his eyes were covered by 2 pairs of hands. Some ninja you are. You can't even tell that a girl was sneaking up behind you. He heard a familiar voice behind him. Izuku laughed and pulled her hand from his eyes. Okay, I admit it. You did get me pretty good, Izuku said as he got up and turned around to see Uraraka wearing a white button shirt and short blue pants while holding a towel. So you admit I'm getting better than you, Uraraka said with a sly smirk. Oh please. Not a chance, Izuku said while smirking. Oh yeah, Uraraka said before running straight towards him and full speed. Izuku took notice and blocked her attack. The two of them then ended up sparring. The two kept at it for about 10 minutes until they grabbed each other in a bind. The two kept at it for about 10 minutes until they grabbed each other in a bind. I thought today was supposed to be a no-training day, 𝗬𝗧𝗏 said with a sly smile. Hey, you started it, Izuku said as they let go of each other. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 looked up at the sun and looked at the sea. Well, now that that's done, what do you say we go cool off in the water? Said 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Is sure, but what are you gonna wear? Izuku asked. All 𝗬𝗧𝗏 could do was give off a mischievous smile. Slowly, she took off her shirt and pulled down her shorts, which caused Izuku to blush like crazy and look away. As soon he heard water splashing, he turned back to her and he couldn't help but stare at her and what she was wearing. As soon he heard water splashing, he turned back to her and he couldn't help but stare at her and what she was wearing. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 turned and noticed him staring at her with a blushing face. Even though she was blushing like crazy, she decided to play with him a bit. Do you like what I'm wearing? She asked. All Izuku could do was nod because he was way too hypnotized by her beauty. Come on, are you just gonna stand there all day? She said as she went further into the water. Izuku, snapping out of his trance, took off the shirt he was wearing, lay it next to 𝗬𝗧𝗏's clothes, and went into the water. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 turned around, took a look at him and couldn't help but stare at his muscles and rock-hard abs. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 turned around, took a look at him and couldn't help but stare at his muscles and rock-hard abs. Oh my god, he's both so cute and so hot, she mentally said while staring at him. Her train of thought was interrupted when she felt a splash of water on her. Don't I always say a ninja should expect the unexpected? Izuku said while laughing. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 splashed him back in the face while he was distracted. You were saying? She giggled. The two of them continued to splash each other water, play tag, or even drown one another in the water. They would even ask locals to take pictures of them with Izuku's T-phone since Donnie added a 4K feature to it. They would take one of them chasing each other, splashing each other faces, even ones with 𝗬𝗧𝗏 giving Izuku surprise hugs. As the sun began to set, the two began to get hungry. They got out of the water and sat at the table Izuku set up. Izuku presented the pizza to 𝗬𝗧𝗏, which made her drool in hunger. Once they finished eating, Izuku looked at the horizon to see the sun has completely gone down and the moon was now shining bright. Izuku thought it was time for dessert. 𝗬𝗧𝗏, pop quiz, what's your favorite sweet? Izuku asked. Izuku, you know that I love mochi, said 𝗬𝗧𝗏 before noticing the smirk on his face. She noticed him go into the cooler and pull out 3 containers of ice cream. When she looked at the label, her eyes sparkled in excitement. Take your pick, Izuku said, looking very proud of himself. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 held her legs as tight as she can. She was trying her best not to jump onto him and give him a face full of kisses. She took up the strawberry flavor while Izuku took the green tea one. As they tasted their ice cream, they couldn't help but love the taste that was in their mouth. Izuku, you gotta try this flavor, 𝗬𝗧𝗏 said as she offered him a spoon of her ice cream. At first, Izuku felt a bit embarrassed, but he mustered the courage to lean forward and taste it. It tastes so sweet, just like you, Izuku said while smiling at her. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 smiled at his comment. Suddenly, something she's been meaning to ask came into her head. Hey Izuku, there's something I've been meaning to ask you, said 𝗬𝗧𝗏. Okay, what is it? Izuku asked. At school, there's this girl in my class who has green hair and green eyes like you. Is she related to you or something? She asked. Izuku sighed as he placed his container on the table. I don't really want to talk about it, said Izuku looking down at the sand. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 sighed and got up from her chair. She went around the table and took both of Izuku's hands and pulled him off the chair. Slowly she pulled him back to the water until both of their bodies were submerged in the water. Can you at least talk to me? She asked with pleading eyes. Izuku let out a breath and began to tell her his story. That girl in your class is my twin sister Izumi, he said flat out. I knew it, she said mentally. When we were kids, when I was diagnosed as quirkless, my parents neglected me, treated me like I didn't exist, while my younger sister and Bakugo used their quirks on me just because I was weak and defenseless. One day, I decided I had enough, so I ran away from home to become my own hero with the help of a family who didn't care I was quirkless, Izuku explained with his head down. 𝗬𝗧𝗏 couldn't help but feel sad that he was treated so horribly and angry at the two people in her class who made his life a living hell. Slowly she swam towards him and wrapped her arms around his neck. Izuku lifted his head to see her eyes glistening in the moonlight. "Izuku, I like you for who you are whether you have a quirk or not," Uraraka said, looking deep into his eyes. "You really mean it?" Izuku asked as tears started to form in his eyes. Uraraka nodded her head. Izuku was so caught in the moment that he leaned in without thinking and gave her a quick kiss on her lips. Once he realized what he was doing, he quickly forced himself back into fear. "I am sorry, I didn't mean to," Izuku said before feeling 2 pairs of hands on his cheek. He looked at her face to see her smiling with tears in her eyes. "Shut up and kiss me again, you naughty little ninja," she said before smashing her lips onto his. Even though he was surprised, he melted in the kiss, allowing her tongue to enter his mouth when she begged for entrance. While kissing, the waves began to slowly drift them to shore, causing Izuku to lean on his back on the sand with Uraraka lying on top of his body. Even though most of her BRST was touching his bare chest, Izuku ignored it and kept kissing her. Due to the lack of oxygen, Uraraka parted her lips from him, leaving a bridge of saliva between them, and looked down at his adorable face. "Have anyone told you that you look so hot without a shirt on?" she asked while still lying on top of his body. "Nope. Has anyone told you that you look so sexy in that bikini?" he asked while being trapped underneath her. They both laughed and leaned their foreheads against each other. "No. But I'm glad you were the one to tell me," she said before giving him a quick kiss on his lips. While kissing, she heard a camera snap beside her. She stopped kissing Izuku and looked to her left to see him using his bow staff as a selfie stick to hold his T-phone. "You sneaky little boy," Uraraka said, bopping his nose. The two decided to call it a night since Izuku had work and Uraraka has school the next day. Izuku took out his odachi and transported whatever thing he carried back to his lair. Once everything was cleaned up, he opened a portal to Uraraka's apartment. "Welp, this is the express lane, miss," Izuku said, indicating to the portal. Instead, Uraraka jumped onto him, causing him to hold her bridal side. "Can you at least stay with me tonight?" Uraraka asked. Izuku didn't even need to nod or say yes. He just smiled and carried her into the portal. As they went to her apartment, Izuku let Uraraka down so she could take shower. Once she was done, she came out of the bathroom wearing red shorts and a pink shirt and towel over her head to see Izuku was gone. Before she could ask, a blue portal opened up to reveal Izuku wearing green shorts and blue shirt and a backpack. "Just needed to pick up some supplies home, dear," Izuku said in a teasing voice while putting down his backpack. "Oh, shut up you," she said while yanking the towel off her head and pulling Izuku by his shirt to her bed. Uraraka turned off the lights and pulled the cover over both of them. Izuku turned to face her with a smile. "I had a lot of fun today, Aizu. I've never felt this happy ever since I found out I was going to you," Uraraka said as she cuddled against him. "To tell the truth, I never felt this truly happy in years. Even though I got powers, got a job, and a new home, you are the one that made me feel complete," Izuku said, hugging her. "Oh Aizu, I love you so much," she said as she kissed his cheeks before drifting off into a deep sleep. Izuku smiled at how cute she was when she was asleep. "I love you too," he said as he fell asleep too. Izuku slowly opened his eyes and he sees the sunlight shining into his eyes. He found it weird considering he always wake up to darkness in the lair. Before he could ask, he heard snoring beside him. He turned around and smiled at the person he was sleeping with as he remembered what happened yesterday. He couldn't feel any happier. At first, he thought he had nothing, but then after meeting the turtles, he got powers and fighting skills, a job he's good at, his own home, and finally, now he has a girlfriend. He watched how she breathes in and out while lying on his chest like a pillow. He reached out for his phone to see that it was 7 in the morning. Wanting to surprise her, he grabbed a pillow next to him and slowly switched himself with it so that she doesn't wake up. As he got out of bed, he turned on his space-time jutsu and opened a portal to the Pizza Hut kitchen. Minutes later, Uraraka slowly woke up to the smell of eggs and cheese. "Aizu, do you smell that?" she said while rubbing her eyes trying to get a better view of her lover. Once she was able to open her eyes, she noticed that Izuku was gone. Where did Sneaky Ninja run off to? She wondered as she followed the smell to her kitchen. Once she reached her kitchen, she sees Izuku flipping egg, cheese, and bacon while toasting breakfast biscuits and hash browns. Suddenly, as the toaster popped up the biscuits into the air, Izuku lifted the pan, allowing the egg and cheese to fly in the air. Using quick reflexes, he grabbed 2 plates and caught everything in mid-air, forming a sandwich in the process. At the same time, the kettle boiled, and Izuku poured the water into 2 Pizza Hut cups that had chocolate tea inside each of them. He placed everything on the table and looked at his work. "Man, why does it feel like I'm cooking for my wife?" he asked out loud until he felt 2 pairs of arms wrapped around him from behind. "Maybe you are," 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 said, holding him. Izuku turned around and hugged her back while giving her a peck on her forehead. "Morning, Oka," Izuku said, earning a giggle from 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏. Once they parted, she looked at the food he laid out for them. "You made this for me?" she asked him. "Yup," he said with a huge smile on his face. The 2 of them sat down at the table and began to eat. Once 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 took a bite from the sandwich, her eyes widened so wide that it looked like they were gonna pop out. "So what do you think?" Izuku asked with his finger crossed underneath the table. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 closed her eyes and placed the sandwich on the table and looked at him with a serious face. "Promise me if we do get married, you'd make this for me every day," she said with a serious face. This caused Izuku to laugh so hard that the tea he was drinking nearly flew out his nose. The 2 continued to eat until 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 finished and got up. "I'm gonna go change for the school, so no peeking, okay?" 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 said as she winked at him, causing Izuku to blush. "WW wouldn't think of it," Izuku said, waving his arms in embarrassment. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 giggled as she went into her room, shaking her hips. Minutes later, after Izuku cleaned up the kitchen, he placed on his jean pants, his signature red sneakers, and his Pizza Hut uniform. As soon as he was finished, he heard 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏's door open to reveal her wearing her UA uniform and pink backpack. "Whoa, you look good in that uniform," Izuku said, staring from her shoes to her stockings, skirt, and shirt. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 could only blush and giggle at her boyfriend's remarks. She walked up to him and slowly did a finger walk on his chest. "Thanks, but I love my man in his uniform," 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 said, giving him a sly look. "Heh, as much as I want to stay and hang out with you, we both have places to go, right?" Izuku said. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 looked at the clock on the wall and freaked out when she saw it was now 8 o'clock. "Oh no, it normally takes me an hour to get to you even by train," she said, freaking out. Suddenly she felt 2 arms wrap around her from the back. Izuku lowered his head so that his mouth was next to her ears. "Did you forget you have a boyfriend that can get you there in under 10 seconds? He whispered into her ears. She giggled as she leaned herself into him and placed her hand on his cheek. "Then can you do me a favor and open the door for me?" she said in a CC tone. "With pleasure," he said as his eyes turned blue and he summoned his 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧. He opened a portal leading to the alley right next to the entrance of UA. "Okay, doors open, milady," Izuku said, pointing to the portal with his sword. "My, what a gentleman," she said as she walked through the portal. Before Izuku could close it, 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 rushed back in and planted a big wet kiss on his lips. "See you later, Aizu," she said, walking back through the portal, wiping her lips. As the portal closed, Izuku stood there stunned while wiping his lips. "Whoa, what a woman," he said before opening his own portal to his workplace. One by one the students of 1A were walking down the hallway to their class to 𝗬𝗏𝗏 making his way to the door. "Like always, 𝗬𝗏𝗏, always the first one here," said Kaminari. "Well, as the class representative, I must make a good example and come early," 𝗬𝗏𝗏 said as he opened the door and froze in place. Everyone noticed his shocked look and went to see what he's looking at. As they all reached the door, everyone's except for Bakugo's mouth dropped wide open to see 𝗬𝗏𝗏 sitting in her seat by herself while staring at her phone. "Achiko, how long have you been here?" Tsu asked her friend. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 didn't answer because she was busy staring at what she looking at on her cell phone. Is she okay?" Momo asked, concerned. Everyone slowly just went to their respective seats while watching their classmates staring at her phone. After a few minutes later, Mr. Aizawa, who was wrapped up in bandages, came in to see everyone sitting in their seats but was a bit freaked out to see 𝗬𝗏𝗏 staring at her phone with a goofy blushing face. He coughed so that he could get her attention. "𝗬𝗏𝗏, can you put away your phone before I confiscate it?" Aizawa asked flat out. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 snapped at her daydream and placed her phone in her backpack. "Sorry, sensei," Uraraka said, scratching the back of her head in embarrassment. While she was scratching her head, one person in the class with pink skin and hair was staring at her with a mischievous smile on her face. Now that that's done, it's time we talk about the upcoming sports festival, said Mr. Aizawa. The sports festival, everyone shouted in excitement. As some of you know, our sports festival is one of the most watched events in the entire world. The past, everyone obsessed over the Olympic Games, but then quirks started appearing. Now the Olympics have been drastically reduced in terms of scale and viewership. For anyone who cares about competition, there's only one tournament that matters, the UA Sports Festival, he explained. He continued to explain the rules and regulations for the event. After he was done, he allowed everyone to take a break so they can talk amongst themselves. The girls decided to group up and talk plans. When they got together, they noticed one was missing, so they turned to see Uraraka giggling on her cell phone. Okay, what's up with her? She's been staring at her phone ever since this morning, Jiro asked, confused. Beats me, said Izumi. All of them then started to hear tsking sounds from Mina. You girls are so blind, Mina said. What do you mean? Tsu asked. Isn't it obvious? Our girl Uraraka has gotten herself a boyfriend, Mina said, shaking in excitement. A boyfriend? All the girls shouted in shock. Think about it, the blushing, the constant smiling, the giggling at her phone. She's obviously staring at a picture of her boyfriend, Mina said in excitement. I wonder if he's handsome. 𝗧𝗪𝗀𝗄 said, why don't you go find out? Mina said with a smirk on his face. I don't know guys, wouldn't that be like invading her privacy? Tsu asked while putting a finger on her mouth. I agree. What if they just started dating? Momo said. Apparently, they just realized that 𝗧𝗪𝗄𝗀 already left when they noticed a floating uniform standing behind Uraraka. They then noticed her slowly limping back to them. Well, what did you see? Mina said with sparkles in her eyes. I saw a picture of her wearing a pink bikini with a boy with a green-haired boy at the beach, 𝗧𝗪𝗄𝗀 said as she stuttered out her words. The girls gasped at what they heard while Izumi stared at her interest when she said green hair. Momo, on the other hand, tried her best to deny it. They probably must just meet at the same beach, Momo said with a blush on her face. Even though she's invisible, based on her actions, they could tell that 𝗧𝗪𝗄𝗀 was shaking her head no. She was kissing him on the lips while lying on top of him, she said. All the girls' faces turned red while Mina let out an exciting scream, causing everyone including Uraraka to look at her as if she was crazy. Suddenly the bell rang indicating it was lunchtime. As everyone left, Izumi grabbed 𝗧𝗪𝗄𝗀's hand. The boy Uraraka was with, did he have any other features other than green hair? She asked. Well, he kinda looked a lot like you but with freckles, 𝗧𝗪𝗄𝗀 explained before leaving for lunch. Izumi stood there in shock. Izuku. He's alive. I gotta find Dad, she mentally said with tears forming in her eyes as she ran to the staff room. In the cafeteria, Uraraka was eating her lunch until all the girls except for Izumi from her class surrounded her. Oh hey guys. What's up? She asked as she placed her bowl of rice on the table. Uraraka backed up in her chair when Mina came very close to her face. She could have sworn she saw her yellow eyes formed into a star. Achiko Uraraka, do you have a boyfriend? Mina asked in excitement. Uraraka's face started to heat up, thinking her secret was out. I don't know what you're talking about, Uraraka said, trying to hide it. Oh, so you weren't at the beach in a pink bikini kissing a muscular green-haired boy, said Mina with a devilish smile. The girls became surprised when they noticed his face turned from an embarrassment into shock. So it's true, Kero, Tsu said in surprise. You really are dating someone? Momo said in surprise. Can you tell us about him? 𝗧𝗪𝗄𝗀 asked in excitement. Sorry. He said he doesn't want a lot of people to know about him. He's kinda a shy person, Uraraka said. Secretly she doesn't want to reveal who Izuku truly is since Bakugo wasn't so far from her. Oh well, if your man says it then it's best to respect his wishes, Mina said, giving Uraraka a thumbs up. Uraraka sighed in relief as she continued to eat her lunch. Hey, have you guys seen Izumi? Jiro asked, noticing the greenette was gone. Oh no, Uraraka said in her mind. Meanwhile, Izumi was in the staff room telling her parents everything she heard from her classmate. All Might and Green Magnet couldn't help but cry in relief that the son they thought was gone may be still alive. Did you ask young Uraraka where he is? All Might, no, and I doubt she's gonna say anything cause 𝐒𝐭𝐻𝐿 sent me a text saying she didn't want to talk about him, Izumi said with her head down. And threatening her with expulsion will just make matters worse for both us and the school, Green Magnet said. All Might sat down with his chin on his hands thinking until he got an idea. The sports festival, All Might said out loud, huh? The women in the room asked confused. If Izuku truly is young Uraraka's boyfriend, then there is no doubt in my mind that he will be there to support her, said All Might, right? And even if he wears a disguise, if we see her with a teenage boy other than her classmates then we can catch him, said Green Magnet in excitement. And we could convince him to come home, said Izumi. That's unless he decides to forgive us, All Might say with his head down. All of their excitement went down the drain when they remembered why Izuku left in the first place. Izumi stood up and looked at her parents with a face of determination. But we have to try. I don't care how long it takes, I won't stop until I get my big brother back, she said. Later at around 4 in the afternoon, Uraraka was currently walking home from school after a long day of school. She thought about visiting Izuku because she wanted to ask him a favor. While walking, she felt as though she was being followed. During her kunoichi training with Izuku, he taught her how to feel her surroundings and environment to know if something or someone is lurking around. A car passed by her. She took a quick look at the reflection to see Izumi hiding around a corner. I can't let her know where Izuku is. She's already caused him enough pain, she said in her mind. She then decided to lose her by taking a different route. As she turned around a corner, Izumi followed after her only to find to the street she took was empty. Where did she go? Izumi wondered. After a few more seconds of looking, she gave up and decided to go home. What she didn't was that the light post she walked under had Uraraka standing on top of it watching her leave. Iza was right. Using my zero gravity on myself along with my kunoichi skills makes me more flexible and versatile, Uraraka said once Izumi was out of her sight. She jumped off the light post and headed straight home just in case she was still following her. Uraraka dropped her bag on the ground, took off her shoes, and opened her room door to see Izuku sitting on her bed in his Pizza Hut uniform with his shoes off. Welcome home, Izuku said, happy to see her. Uraraka sighed in exhaustion and sat down on her bed beside him while leaning on him. I got your text so I portaled over here as soon as my shift ended. So you were able to avoid her? Izuku asked. Uraraka giggled. It was all thanks to awesome ninja skills my handsome boyfriend taught me, she said as she cuddled into his chest. I think you called me here for more than just lover cuddles, asked Izuku. Uraraka leaned off of him and held her head down. Izu, I have 2 favors to ask you, said Uraraka. What is it? Izuku asked concerned. First, the sports festival is coming up and I wanted to ask if you can prepare me for it. I personally want to get back at Izumi and Bakugo for what they did to you, Uraraka said, clenching her fist. Izuku chuckled at her. Okay, I'll train you, but only so you can win the sports festival, not to get revenge for me, said Izuku. Uraraka smiled and jumped onto him, latching onto him in happiness with her arms wrapped around his neck. So, what's the second favor? Asked Izuku. I know that your parents and sister are gonna be there, but can you come and support me at the festival? My parents can only see me by watching the TV since they're working, but I want you, my boyfriend, to be there and cheer for me, she asked with a bit of sadness. Izuku looked at her with regret. He remembered how his parents weren't there for any of his birthdays or for him at all. Never again did he want to go through that, or anyone he cared about go through that same pain again. He lifted up her head by her chin and looked into her dark chocolate eyes. Oka, I swear by Hamato's name, I will be there in the crowd cheering you on, he said while using his hand and caressing her cheek. Uraraka couldn't but feel her heart filled with an undying love. She climbed all over him in her school uniform and smashed her lips onto his so that the saliva in each other's mouths were intertwining with each other. The 2 of them ended up in a full-on makeout session. Izuku and Uraraka were so caught in the moment, they didn't know what they were doing to each other. The hands that were on Uraraka's face slowly trailed down to her skirt while her hand went down to Izuku's pants. Once the both of them found the buttons that were holding their clothing, They unclasped them and pulled it down along with her stockings, revealing his underwear and her panties. The two of them were going crazy with love and lust at the moment. They separated for only a few seconds to forcibly remove each other's shirts. Izuku was left wearing nothing but his underwear while Uraraka was just in a BR and panties. Izuku sat up so she can sit on his lap. "Oka, I really want to do it with you, but we don't have any," Izuku said before feeling a finger on his lips. She reached for the drawer at the side of her bed and pulled out something that shocked Izuku. "A condom. Where did you?" Izuku asked, surprised. "You won't believe me, but my mom gave it to me behind my father's back. She always said save it for the man who would devote all his love and attention to you. Izuku, I want you to be my first," Uraraka said with pleading eyes. Izuku looked at her and smiled. He reached to his waist and pulled off his underwear, revealing his fully erected pages. Uraraka could actually feel herself drool from, "I will if you become my first." Uraraka wasted no time reaching for back and unclipping her BR, allowing it to fall on her bed. She then went to her waist and pulled off her panties. Izuku stared at her figure with wide eyes. Uraraka blushed and looked away. "I get it. I don't have that much of an attractive body," Uraraka said as she looked away in shame. Izuku looked at her and then back at the condom. He took it, opened the packet and slid the packet around his pages. Uraraka turned around at the sound of the packet opening. She looked at him to see him with open arms. She smiled and jumped onto his lap so their naked bodies were touching each other. "Izuku, let's both take our first," she said. "Let's do it." The two of them closed the gap between them and took their relationship to the next level. While she had one hand on his face, Uraraka used her other hand to guide Izuku's pee-pee to her entrance. Once she felt the tip of it, she slowly lowered herself down until she felt his entire length was inside of him. "Oh my Izu, I sure caught myself a big one," she said as she bit her lip trying to get used to it. "I guess you did," he said, feeling her folds tighten around him. Slowly, Uraraka began to bounce on his pages, one bounce after another, she in pleasure with her tongue sticking out of her mouth. Izuku's breathing became very heavy since her insides were tightening around his pages. Uraraka, wanting to take initiative, shoved Izuku onto his back and bounced on his pee-pee harder. Izuku watched how her BRST bounced up and down as she moved. Since his mind was into a sex drive, he grabbed her back and pulled her down to him so he can SCK onto her BRT, causing Uraraka's arousal to increase times 50. "Oh, Izu, you're like a baby," Uraraka said as saliva leaks out of her in pleasure. "Well, I'm your baby, aren't I?" Izuku said as he bit her nipples. "Why, yes. You'll always be my baby," Uraraka said in exhausted voice. He let go off her so that she could continue. Suddenly, Uraraka felt his something twitch inside of her. "Uraraka, I feel like I'm gonna come," Izuku said, getting very exhausted. "Then don't hold it in. Let it out, all out inside of me," Uraraka said, very flustered doing what she said. He grabbed onto her butt and pushed his pee-pee deeper inside of her as he comes, earning a scream for Uraraka's mouth. She dropped herself on top of Izuku, depleted of all energy. Izuku turned her to her side and pulled the cover over them. Can I be honest about something?" Uraraka asked, very exhausted. Can I be honest about something?" Uraraka asked, very exhausted. "What is it?" Izuku asked as he pulled the condom of him and tied it up. She got close to him so that her chest was against his. "I can't wait for the day we do it raw," she whispered before passing out and falling asleep. Izuku chuckled and turned off the lights. "So do I," he whispered before passing out too. Ever since their night of making out, Izuku trained Uraraka to the extreme for the festival. He helps her train to use her quirk to make herself more agile and flexible so she can move faster and jump higher. They would even perform meditations in the Izuku's lair for peace and quiet so that Uraraka can practice her breathing for when she used her quirk. After days of training, it was now the day of the sports festival. Izuku was currently doing his daily shifts, sharing out pizza to tables. He looked at the clock and noticed that the festival was going to start soon. He quickly gave out the last pizza and went to Max in his office. Once he opened the door, he was surprised to see Max on the channel of the sports festival. "Max, I finished my shift and I promised my girlfriend I'd be there at the stadium to support her," Izuku said, holding his cap, hoping Max would let him go. "Then why are you still here?" Get going already, Max said with a smile. Izuku smiled and wasted no time running out of the office. He went to where the employees' lockers were, opened his, and changed his clothes. He kept on his signature red shoes and pants but changes into a black shirt and green hoodie jacket along with a black cap and mask so he can hide his hair and face. He even placed on some gloves to hide his ring and to complete his look. He grabbed his skateboard, used the back door of the shop, and rode his board all the way to the stadium. He grabbed his skateboard, used the back door of the shop, and rode his board all the way to the stadium. Once he reached, he showed them his ticket and went inside and went to take his seat. Lucky for him, when he bought his ticket, he was assigned to a seat in the front so that Uraraka could find him. In the locker room, while 1A was preparing themselves, Izumi was in the corner filling everything to Bakugo. So you're saying that Izuku might be somewhere in the crowd? Bakugo quietly asked. Which, and since Uraraka's his girlfriend, she just might lead us to him, Izumi whispered, and if she doesn't? Bakugo asked, then if we're ever put up against her, we try to force her to tell us. Izumi said, sounds like a plan, although Izuku might hate us more if we badly hurt her, said Bakugo. We may not have a choice, she said before hearing the announcement telling everyone they had to head for the stadium. They then began to walk out of the tunnel full of determination to win. Uraraka searched the audience hoping to find the one who promised her that he'll be there. After a quick search, she noticed a boy wearing a black mask in a green hoodie waving at her. The boy took off his right glove and held it in the air revealing his turtle ring. Uraraka smiled with excitement because she knows who has a ring like that. I knew you'd keep your promise, Aizu, Uraraka mentally said as everyone else came in. The pro hero Midnight called Bakugo as the class representative up to the stage to give an inspirational speech. I just want to say, I'm gonna win, Bakugo said flat out. I knew he would say something like that. All of Class 1A and Izuku mentally shouted as everyone in the audience began to boo at him. Midnight then announced the first event, the obstacle race. Everyone lined up at the starting line and got ready. Bakugo started to let out explosions. Izumi Uraraka closed her eyes as she touched herself. Oh, make her weight lighter. As soon as Mike shouted go, everyone rushed out as fast as they can. Uraraka on the other hand pressed her feet on the ground and ran at incredible speed ninja style. Everyone that she passed could only see dirt flying because of her incredible speed. Ida, who was running, looked beside him to see Uraraka matching his speed. You Uraraka, how are you? He asked in shock that someone was able to keep up to his speed. All Uraraka could do was wink and run past him. Zero-pointer robots started to appear to slow down everyone. Some students attacked and faced them head-on while Uraraka jumped at an incredible height and did a front flip over the robot, landing perfectly on her 2 feet before running. Amazing, Aizawa, you didn't mention you taught gymnastics to your students, cause in my opinion Achiko Uraraka got a 10-10 for that incredible stunt, Mike shouted on the megaphone. I didn't teach her that. She must have picked it up from somewhere during the break, Aizawa said into the mic in a lazy voice. Or someone, Izuku whispered as he watched the display of the race. Uraraka, who was in the lead, reached the canyon. It was a piece of cake when she increased the zero gravity on herself and jumped over the entire canyon in one jump. Once she reached the minefield, she decided to jump over it too to avoid any casualties. Once she landed, she decided to run the rest of the way. While running, she looked behind her to see Izumi using her telekinesis to ride a robot piece as a hoverboard, Bakugo propelling himself with his explosions, and Todoroki catching up with his ice. Trying her best to stay ahead, she made herself lighter, dug her feet deep into the ground, and propelled herself all the way to the finish line, resulting in Izumi becoming second and Bakugo being third. And the winner is Achiko Uraraka of 1. Mike shouted through the mic. The whole stadium cheered for her while one by one everyone else came through the tunnel. As she fell on her back in exhaustion, she looked at the crowd to see her boyfriend clapping for her in excitement. Did you see that, Mom? Dad? Izuku? She whispered to herself as she took deep breaths. It's now time for the cavalry battle, Midnight announced to everyone. Uraraka got up and gathered around the pro hero. Midnight explained that there are only 4 people on each team and they must steal each other points. She displayed a list of all the 42 students that would be participating and the points each of them is worth. She then turned to Uraraka and pointed her 𝗕𝗏𝗃 toward her. 𝗓𝐭 Uraraka, since you came first place, you are worth 1 million points, Midnight announced. The whole stadium went silent once she said that. Uraraka felt like a spotlight was placed over her head while Izuku stared at her in shock. Oh no, both Izuku and Uraraka mentally said. As everyone began to form teams, Uraraka was left by herself. Suddenly a certain green-haired girl walked up to her, which made both Uraraka and Izuku think the same thing. You have got to be kidding me. Not her. Izumi walked up to her, kept a straight face. Hey Uraraka, why don't you and I team up? Izumi said, offering her a hand. Uraraka felt like she wanted to grab her hand and do the judo flip Izuku taught her in case she has to fight Bakugo, but instead, she grabbed her and shook it, giving her the brightest smile she could give. Let's do it, said Uraraka. While they talked, a pink-haired girl in rocket boots floated over to them and asked to be a part of their team. As soon as they accepted her, Uraraka asked Tokoyami for help too, to which he agreed. Since Uraraka was placed first, she sat on the top and tied the 1 million points band on her forehead. As soon as Midnight said go, everyone immediately charged toward Uraraka's team. Concentrating on her breathing, Uraraka touched everyone and removed most of the gravity from them. Mei then used her boots to lift them off the ground so that they were so high not even Ajui's tongue is long enough to reach them. Many people tried throwing or blasting things at them, but everyone was stunned that Uraraka was able to keep everyone in the air for more than 5 minutes without feeling sick. They were even more shocked that she was able to hold on until time was up. Amazing Team Uraraka takes the win by storm thanks to the power of their leader. Present Mike shouted through the mic. Mr. Aizawa, on the other hand, was deep in thought on how Uraraka has improved. This is interesting. Uraraka was able to go way past her limit in only a few weeks. I know her parents work in construction, so they couldn't possibly be the ones who have taught her. Someone very skilled must have, but the question is who? He wondered in his mind. The teams that won were Team Uraraka, Team Bakugo, Team Todoroki, and Team Shinso. Sorry if it felt rushed. I had some stuff to do. Izuku went to get himself some popcorn after Uraraka's team won the match. He returned to his seat, sat down, and started eating only to spit it out because of what he's seeing on the field. All the girls in 1A, including Izumi, were wearing cheerleader outfits. Okay, even I know someone is behind this, 'cause this was not in the program, Izuku said as he looked around and spotted Kaminari and Mineta giving each other a thumbs up. Okay, even I know someone is behind this, 'cause this was not in the program, Izuku said as he looked around and spotted Kaminari and Mineta giving each other a thumbs up. They then began to announce who is going against who in the next event. Izuku looked at the board and his heart started to beat when he saw that Uraraka was going against his formal bully Bakugo. His phone began to ring. He got a text from Uraraka saying, "Come to the waiting room, please. I know you can get there without being caught." He got up and walked off. Uraraka walked into the waiting room still in the cheerleader clothes she was tricked to wear. Once she went in, she closed the door and looked around while giggling. "I know you're here. I'm nearly a kunoichi with heightened senses, you know." Uraraka said out loud. "Actually, I'm right behind you," said Izuku before she could turn around. She felt 2 arms wrapped around her waist. She smiled and giggled while leaning herself against the person who was hugging her. "You told me I looked sexy in a bikini. What do you think about a cheerleader outfit?" Uraraka asked in a CC tone. "I think I had hit the jackpot," Izuku said with his head on her shoulders. Uraraka turned around, placed her hands around his neck, and pulled him into a kiss. They kissed for about 5 minutes before separating. "So are you nervous?" Izuku asked about fighting Bakugo. "A little, but I'm still determined to beat him." "I remember what you said, but I'm still gonna beat him. For you," Uraraka said, looking into his eyes expecting a complaint. Instead, she got a hug. "If you could do it, I couldn't feel any happier. But even if you didn't, I'd still be glad to have a very strong and promising girlfriend like you," Izuku said, pushing back some of her hair. Uraraka smiled and laid her head on his chest. "I'm gonna change for the battle and get lunch. And I'll see you later, my Izuku," she said, giving him a quick peck on his lips. While the two of them shared another hug, Izuku whispered something into her ears. While talking, 2 people were currently outside the room listening to the conversation. I'll be damned, she just said, my 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗍 said while having his ears against the door. I knew it. My brother is here and alive, Izumi whispered with tears in her eyes. Suddenly they felt the door begin to open. They too quickly leaned off it to see Uraraka in her gym uniform. What do you guys want? Uraraka asked with a stern face. And nothing. I thought this room was empty since we need to prepare for the match. Izumi said, scratching the back of her head. Okay, Uraraka said, giving an I don't care face, before walking away. Izumi and Bakugo took this chance to catch Izuku in the room. They went inside the room only to find it empty. What the hell? Said Bakugo. Where is he? Izumi asked. What they didn't know was that Izuku was above them, hanging on the ceiling while implanting Ninpō energy into his fingers and feet. He dropped himself to the ground behind them without making a sound and quietly left the room, leaving a disappointed Izumi and Bakugo. He dropped himself to the ground behind them without making a sound and quietly left the room, leaving a disappointed Izumi and Bakugo. It was now time for the first round of the one-on-one fighting. Izumi went up into the arena in front of Shinso Hitoshi. While Shinso gave her a creepy smile, she had a face of seriousness. I don't have time for this guy. I just need to get to Uraraka, Izumi mentally said. Okay. Let the battle begin. 𝗵𝗃 announced. Shinso was about to say something until Izumi used telekinesis, lifted him up, and tossed him out of the ring, leaving a huge dent in the wall. Wow, it hasn't even been more than 10 seconds and Izumi Midoriya had already won the match, 𝗵𝗃 announced. Everyone in the crowd cheered while Izuku sat with his arms crossed, shaking his head. She didn't even give him time to move. Jeez, he said. As the recovery bots took Shinso away, the other matches continued. Izuku couldn't help but take notes on everyone's quirks. The one he focused more on was Todoroki. He knew he used fire during the cavalry battle, but he's mostly using ice. He's still not using his fire. I guess he didn't follow my advice, Izuku said with his arms crossed. Earlier Izuku was able to escape the room he was in with Hachiko thanks to his ninja senses. Those guys really thought they could sneak up on us ninjas, he said mentally as he walked back to his seat through the hallway only to bump into Todoroki. Great. This one time my ninja senses don't work, Izuku said as he face-palmed himself. Who are you? Todoroki asked. Sorry, I got lost looking for the bathroom, he said, scratching the back of his head. Todoroki simply didn't say anything but just walked past him. Izuku then remembered something. Hey, during the race I saw you use your right side to make ice to skate to the finish, but in cavalry battle, I saw you use your left side to make fire. I have to say, you have a very interesting quirk, said Izuku. Thanks, I guess, said Todoroki as he paid less attention to him. At least that's what I thought until I saw you wasting such a precious gift, Izuku said with his back facing him. Todoroki stopped, walked up to him, and grabbed him by the collar. Don't ever call my power a gift. The ice sure, but the fire is a goddamn curse, Todoroki said with a threatening face. Izuku simply placed his hand on his arm. Let go of me please, Izuku said as calmly as he can, even though he could have flipped him onto his back. Once Todoroki let him go, he began to explain how he hates his father's powers and that he would win by only using his ice. That left Izuku in shock and disbelief because he was just like him and that he was being ridiculous. Before Todoroki left, Izuku decided to speak up. You know what I think? I think that's bullshit, Izuku said with a bit of anger in his voice. Todoroki stopped and looked at him with a stunned face. You have a power that any hero would want. A power that can save multiple lives, and you say you're only gonna use 50% of it because of the hate you feel for your father. Will that be your excuse if you fail to save someone when your fire was needed? Izuku said before walking off. Present as Todoroki went through the tunnel, Izuku could see Hachiko coming out of the tunnel with full determination in her eyes. On the other side, he could see Bakugo walking in looking very angry. Okay, the next match begins now, 𝗵𝗃 announced. As soon as 𝗵𝗃 said, now, Bakugo used his explosions and rocketed himself to Hachiko at high speed. Hachiko ran towards him and front flipped over him and landed on the other side of the stadium. I know you know Pink Cheeks. Where is he? Bakugo said as he unleashed explosions at her. Unfortunately, 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 ran at incredible ninja speed, dodging each and every explosion he launched. I don't know what you're talking about, 𝗂𝐭𝐽𝐻 said, trying not to get scorched. Don't play dumb. I'm talking about Izuku. I know he is alive and that you know him. You're his goddamn girlfriend, Bakugo shouted as he unleashed more explosions. So what if I am? I love him, and that's why I respect his wishes when he says that he wants nothing to do with you or the family that abandoned him, she shouted. Bakugo was taken back by her words that she took advantage of it, dashed towards him, and performed at an uppercut under his chin. Izuku and the crowd uproared at that sudden attack. That's my girl, Izuku shouted, his mind knowing if someone heard him, they might identify him. Bakugo wiped his mouth while recovering from the punch. I have to admit, that was a good punch, but it'll take more than that to take me down, Bakugo said, prepping for another explosion. I agree, 𝗂𝐭𝐲 said before placing her fingertips together. Bakugo suddenly felt a pebble fall on his shoulder. He then looked up in shock to see bunches of rubble floating above him. Damn it, when I was unleashing explosions, I must have gave her enough rubble for her to float while she was dodging, Bakugo said as it began to fall on him. Damn it, when I was unleashing explosions, I must have gave her enough rubble for her to float while she was dodging, Bakugo said as it began to fall on him. Bakugo held up his hand to blow up the rubble. 𝗂𝐭𝐻, on the other hand, knew what he was doing once she saw him raise up his hand. She then remembered an old ninja saying Izuku taught her. Anything can be a weapon. She looked around to see a flat piece of broken paving slab on the ground. She picked it up and held it like a Tessin fan. She focused on a certain angle and threw it as it spun like a boomerang. The slab flew past Bakugo, confusing him until it circled back and knocked his arm, damaging his wrist. Izuku couldn't help but watch in amazement. I can't believe it. She officially mastered Tessenjutsu. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. 𝗂𝐭𝐻 ran straight for him, catching the slab in her hand in the process, activated her quirk on herself, and delivered a straight kick to his torso, knocking him out of the ring. Bakugo's out of bounds. 𝗂𝐭𝐻 Uraraka wins. Present mic announced in the mic. The entire stadium roared in excitement for the young girls to win. Izuku, not caring if he would be a bit revealing, stood up, clapped his hands, and whistled for his girlfriend. 𝗂𝐭𝐻 looked up to see Izuku whistling for his seat and gave him a secret wink. The recovery bots came and took Bakugo to the med bay while 𝗂𝐭𝐻 went to join her classmates. Once she reached the podium where her class was sitting, she was bombarded by her classmates. That match was awesome, Uraraka, said Kirishima. 𝗬𝗓, you show Bakugo who's boss, said Mina. If you don't mind me asking, but how were you able to move so fast, asked Ida. 𝗬𝗓, and how were you able to throw that piece on concrete with such precision, asked Momo. If I didn't know any better, the way you move, it's like a ninja. Like carapace, 𝗬𝗓 asked with a finger on her lips. Uraraka felt her heart make a beat, thinking she was gonna get caught. She quickly came up with an excuse. Really? I didn't notice. I guess ever since Carapace saved us at the USJ, he's been an inspiration to me, Uraraka said, rubbing the back of her head. Suddenly she felt her phone ring. Sorry, I gotta take this, 𝗂𝐭𝐻 said before leaving to answer her phone. Once she reached one of the waiting areas, she closed the door and answered her phone. Hey daddy. Sorry I didn't pick up earlier. There was just way too much noise, 𝗂𝐭𝐻 said as she apologized over the phone. No, it's fine, sorry for calling when you're so busy. Your mom and I saw you on TV and you were just incredible. I never even knew my daughter had such talent, Mr. Uraraka said proudly. Uraraka gripped her phone as tears of joy began to come out. But there's no need to rush. Even if you had lost, I know you still can be a pro hero. The very fact that you want to help us so badly shows me you'll make a kind, caring hero one day. I am so proud of you, Mr. Uraraka stated as his daughter began crying her eyes out. Thank you, Dad. I love you, 𝗂𝐭𝐻 said before hanging up. The other matches continued. Izumi defeated Todoroki by using OFA to increase her telekinesis and throw him out of the stage. Uraraka was able to defeat Kirishima and Tokoyami due to her speed and her quirk. It was now time for the final round between Izumi and 𝗂𝐭𝐻. The two girls walked into the arena both looking ready to P&D each other to the ground. Once the two stood in the arena, Izumi clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗏 told me everything. As my brother's little sister, I have the right to know where he is and if he's okay," said Izumi. "And as your brother's girlfriend, I have the right to protect him from the wicked family who caused his life to be hell," 𝗬𝗏𝗄 shouted back. Izumi felt her fingernails digging into her hands as she clenched them harder. Once midnight set to start, Izumi wasted no time trying to use her telekinesis on her. Once 𝗬𝗏𝗄 noticed her hands were raised, she ran at incredible speed to avoid being caught by her quirk. "Stay still, damn it," Izumi shouted. "Like hell I would," 𝗬𝗏𝗄 said while running and dodging. 𝗬𝗏𝗄 ran around her in circles, which pissed off Izumi. She got so upset, tears came out of her eyes as she activated OFA in her entire left arm. "TMNT," she said as she punched the ground, causing the entire arena to break up and a mini tornado to form. Catching her off guard, 𝗬𝗏𝗄 was swept off her feet into the air, giving Izumi the chance to grab her mid-air with her right arm. While being gripped into the air, 𝗬𝗏𝗄 looked at her arm and noticed her entire arms were completely purple and broken. "You're crazy, why would you go so far to break your own arm?" 𝗬𝗏𝗄 shouted while being held in the air. Izumi said nothing, except she clenched her hands, earning a scream from 𝗬𝗏𝗄. "Ali wanna knows the whereabouts of my brother, so I can apologize for all the CRP I have caused him, and I'll do whatever takes to do it. Even if I have to squeeze the truth out of you," Izumi said before clenching her hand even more. 𝗬𝗏𝗄's screams became louder as felt and heard her bones beginning to break. The crowd began to boo her and Izuku clenched his fist in anger. "Izumi Midoriya, that's enough, you'll kill her," Midnight announced. Despite what she said, Izumi continued her torture. Once Izuku noticed BLD running from her nose, he couldn't take it anymore. He pulled out a bunch of shurikens from his pocket and looked at Midnight. "Based on my observations, it takes at least 10 seconds for her quirk to work on females, while it takes about 3 seconds on males. But if I could get rid of most of her clothing," Izuku said in his mind before throwing the shurikens so fast that no one in the crowd could see him. The shurikens made many rips and scratches, revealing most of her skin, causing a lot of her somnambulist to be released in the air. Once Izumi began to sniff the aroma, slowly she began to feel dizzy. Once 10 seconds was up, Izumi dropped to the ground asleep, releasing 𝗬𝗏𝗄 to fall on the ground passed out. After some discussion with the judges, they agreed that since 𝗬𝗏𝗄 was immobilized by Izumi, they agreed that Izumi was the winner. During the awards ceremony, 𝗬𝗏𝗄 was on the second-place podium, sitting in a wheelchair due to the fact that most of her bones were a bit sore, but thanks to Recovery Girl she would heal in about 2 hours. All Might himself presented the awards to everyone. 𝗬𝗏𝗄 had to try her best not to glare so much at All Might since she already know that he is Izuku's father. Once the festival was over, 𝗬𝗏𝗄 wheelchaired herself out of the stadium despite her friends asking to help her. Once she reached outside, she noticed Izuku standing at the entrance with his hands in his pocket. "Hey, how are you feeling?" said Izuku. 𝗬𝗏𝗄 held her head down. "I'm sorry, Izuku. Because of my arrogance, they know that I know you," 𝗬𝗏𝗄 said. Izuku walked towards her and placed a kiss on her forehead. "I told you. I don't want you to win for me, I wanted you to prove to me and the world how powerful you are. And you did," Izuku said, holding up her second-place medal. "I'm proud of you." 𝗬𝗏𝗄's frown turned upside down once he said that. "Since I still got the day off, why don't I treat you to some dinner tonight?" "I haven't treated you to an official dinner date ever since the beach," Izuku said, receiving a smile for 𝗬𝗏𝗄. "Take me home, and give me time to get ready," said 𝗬𝗏𝗄. Izuku then proceeded to push 𝗬𝗏𝗄 back to her apartment. In the stadium, Izumi was currently being scolded by her parents. "I know we said we to try to find Izuku, but crushing her loved one was going too far, Izumi," 𝐒𝐭 said in her hero suit. "I know we said we to try to find Izuku, but crushing her loved one was going too far, Izumi," 𝐒𝐭 said in her hero suit. "I know, but as 𝗵𝗃𝗲 said, she admitted right there that she knows him," said Izumi. "I understand you're desperate to bring your brother, but harming the one he loves isn't gonna make him forgive us and come home," said Toshi in his hero form. Izumi held her head down. Suddenly Mr. Aizawa came to them with Midnight beside him. "All Might, get a load of this," Aizawa said, holding an object in his hands. All Might looked closely at it and his eyes widened. These were what ripped by clothing releasing my quirk during the final match. Midnight said, these were what ripped by clothing releasing my quirk during the final match. Midnight said. In other words, that young ninja vigilante was among the audience, said Aizawa. And I must say, he hid very well to save that girl, said Nizu popping out of Aizawa's scarf. He even got me impressed. Izumi then began to remember what happened at the USJ at how Carapace's voice sounded. It can't be a coincidence now, Izumi said in her mind. After the sports festival, Izuku took Achiko home so she could get ready for their dinner date. She told him that she'll be ready at around 5, which gave Izuku time to make plans to go somewhere. After he dropped her off at her apartment and the coast was clear, he used the Odachi and made a portal to his lair. Currently, he was taking a shower while talking to some friends for advice. Come on man, can't you just take her to Pizza Hut again? Mikey said through the phone. She goes there many times dude, I want to bring her somewhere special, said Izuku. Ignore him. Why not take her to that new restaurant that opened near your local beach? Said Leo. White, you're a ninja man. You're bound to be good with the ladies, said Ralph. Izuku's sweat dropped at the comment. I think what they're trying to say is that you got this in the bag Izuku, Donnie said. Thanks, I'll tell you guys how it went later, Izuku said as he got out of the shower. He then hung up the phone and began to get ready. He placed on a green jacket and pants and placed on some cologne. Once he was done, he went to the corner to where an object was covered in a blanket. He pulled it off to reveal a green Vespa. I was so lucky to find this among the garbage at the beach. I was so lucky to find this among the garbage at the beach. Hicks to Donnie's intelligence, I was able to fix it up, Izuku said jumping on it. He turned it on, opened a secret opening, and drove out of the lair. Currently, on the road, 2 people were currently driving in the direction of Achiko's apartment. Are you sure it's okay to visit Achiko unannounced, honey? The woman in the car asked. Our daughter came into second place in the sports festival, dear. I want to show her how proud we are by giving her a little surprise visit, the man said. Those people are Uraraka's parents. As they came up to Uraraka's apartment, they noticed their daughter standing downstairs. Mrs. Uraraka was about to call out to her until she noticed what she's wearing. She had on a clean pink sweater, a black skirt, brown boots, and a strawberry hair clip in her hair. I wonder why's Achiko's all dressed up. It's like she's getting ready for a date, said Mrs. Uraraka. No way, Achiko's too pure for any boy. Besides, she would have told us if she had. He was cut off at the sound of a bike engine. Suddenly Izuku on his Vespa drove past them and stopped in front of Achiko. Once Izuku put his Vespa in park mode, he took the time to look at his appealing girlfriend. Achiko took notice of this and twirled around in her dress. I've been saving this for a special occasion. You like it? Asked Achiko. When have I not liked what you wear? Izuku said with a sly grin. Achiko giggled, walked up to him, and placed a quick peck on his cheek. Mr. Uraraka, who was watching everything, gripped the steering wheel in anger while Mrs. Uraraka's eyes widened in surprise. So you got some new wheels? Achiko asked, referring to his Vespa. Had it ever since I cleaned up the beach. Good thing my tech jutsu was able to fix it up. I just thought we'd take the scenic route. Come on, let's not be late for our reservations, Izuku said as he pulled out a pink helmet he had in his seat. Achiko smiled, took and placed on the helmet, sat behind him. She wrapped her arms around Izuku's torso as he started the engine and drove off. Achiko's parents had their mouths open as they watched their daughter drive off with a boy they did not know about. Mr. Uraraka wasted no time turning on the engine and proceeded to follow them. I can't believe our little girl got herself a boyfriend, Mrs. Uraraka said. Well, I'll be the judge if he's worth of my daughter's kindness, he said as followed behind them. Minutes later, so where are you taking me? I actually thought we were going to have pizza, Achiko asked, holding Izuku tight. Nah, I thought I'd take you somewhere special, Izuku said as he stopped the bike in a parking lot. Achiko looked around and noticed they were right beside a restaurant located near the beach Izuku cleaned up. Izuku, you didn't, Achiko gasped as she placed her hand on his mouth. I did, he responded as he placed a kiss on her cheek, earning a giggle from her. Achiko latched herself onto his arm as he led her inside. The receptionist at the front noticed the young couple. "What can I do for you kids?" the receptionist asked. "I made a reservation under the name Midoriya," Izuku said. The receptionist typed on the computer until she found his name. You got the VIP pass?" the receptionist said. "VIP?" Hachiko asked. "Yup. With VIP pass you get these free boxes of Pocky and you get an all-you-can-eat access to anything in on our menu," the receptionist said as he handed them boxes Pocky. Hachiko's eyes widened in excitement as she took one of the boxes of Pocky. As Izuku took his box, the receptionist led them to their table. As they reached it, Hachiko couldn't help but gasp at the sight. The two took their seat as the receptionist handed them their menus. As she left them, Izuku gave Hachiko a sly look. "So what do you think?" Izuku asked. "I think you're being way too romantic," Hachiko said with her elbows on the table and her head on her hands. She took one of her Pocky and placed the end in her mouth. To her surprise, Izuku leaned over a bit the other end of it. Hachiko, knowing what he's doing, continued to eat until the two of them met at the center with their lips connected to each other. They stayed that way for 10 seconds before parting. What they didn't know was that two certain adults were sitting not far from them with glasses of water in their hands. "I can't take it anymore," Mr. Uraraka said as he was about to get up and march over to them until he felt his wife's hand on his. "Calm down, dear. Let's just go over to them, but calmly. You could be wrong and he is just an innocent boy who our daughter fell in love with," Mrs. Uraraka said. Mr. Uraraka took a deep breath and relaxed. The two of them got up from their tables, removed their disguises, and walked towards the teenagers in the direction of Hachiko's back. What they didn't know was that the teens sensed them approaching, so they covered their faces with their menus. "Who's coming, Izuku?" Hachiko whispered as quietly as she can. Izuku looked at the adults behind and noted down their features. When he saw the woman, his eyes widened and gulped. "Oh God, I hope they're not who I think they are," he said in his mind. "Hachiko, don't freak out, but there's a man and woman behind you and the woman looks a lot like you," Izuku whispered. Hachiko's hand began to shake in fear. "In what way does she look like me?" Hachiko whispered. "Brown hair and blush marks," Izuku whispered. Hachiko couldn't help but drop the menu on the table. Slowly she turned around and face to face with her parents. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Hachiko asked as she got up from her chair. "We came into town to celebrate with your second-place win in the sports festival, but it looks like someone beat us to it," Mrs. Uraraka said while looking at Izuku, who had a freak-out look on his face. He was currently having a stare-off with Hachiko's dad. Izuku," Hachiko whispered, snapping out of his trance. Izuku," Hachiko whispered, snapping out of his trance. He shook his head and showed his hand to her dad. "Hello, sir, ma'am, my name is Izumi Midoriya," he said, trying his best to keep his composure. Mr. Uraraka looked at his hand and back to his face. "So far, he doesn't look like the bad boy type," Mr. Uraraka mentally said as he shook his hand. Suddenly, a waitress came to the table and noticed the adults. "I'm sorry, but are you two with these kids?" the waitress asked. Izuku looked at their faces and noticed they were going to say no. Moving very quickly, he got up. "Why, yes. They are two additional guests that I have invited," Izuku said with a convincing smile. "Okay. Let me get 2 additional menus," the waitress said as she left. Without warning, Izuku lifted up the chair Hachiko was in and shifted close to his seat. "What are you doing?" Hachiko whispered. "Trying to impress your parents, that's what I'm doing," Izuku retorted. He left the table and got 2 extra chairs for the parents to sit. As everyone sat down, the waitress came and handed the adults their menus. Once she left, the 4 of them sat in silence. Izuku was sweating, Hachiko was twiddling her thumbs, and Mr. Uraraka was eyeing Izuku. Thankfully, Mrs. Uraraka was able to break the silence. "So, Izuku, when did you meet our daughter?" she asked Izuku. "Well, I met her when I was closing up shop one night," he answered. "Closing up shop? You mean have a job?" Mr. Uraraka asked. Hachiko decided to speak up. "He works at the Pizza Hut store in town. He offered me free pizza when he noticed I was hungry," she said as she wrapped herself around one of his arms, making him blush. "After that day, we became friends and then grew to each other." He took me to the beach for our first date where we confessed our feelings, she said smiling. Mrs. Uraraka couldn't help but awe at the sight while Mr. Uraraka watched closely. As the waitress came back, everyone took their orders thanks to the VIP exclusive. As they ate, they spoke more about each other. They found out that Izuku lives and takes care of himself similar to Achiko and that he's a hard worker. Once dinner was over, the four of them walked out of the restaurant. Mr. Uraraka's phone then began to ring. He answered it, talked, and hung up. "Honey, they need us back at work," Mr. Uraraka told his wife. "You're leaving already?" Achiko said looking sad. "But it was good seeing dear." "I'm really proud of you," Mrs. Uraraka said while hugging her daughter. Mr. Uraraka walked up to Izuku, causing him to shake a bit. "You seem like a nice boy, so I'll trust you to take care of my daughter," he said, giving him a hand. Izuku smiled and took it. Mrs. Uraraka walked up to him and ruffled his hair. "But I do not wish for any grandchildren yet, so save the thing for until you're at least 18, she said. Both Izuku and Achiko gulped. As they got into their car and drove off, the two teens hopped on the Vespa and went home. "Well, at least I got to meet your parents," Izuku said while driving. "Not the way I wanted you guys to meet, but I can roll with it," she said as she leaned into Izuku more. It's been days ever since the sports festival and the dinner with Achiko's parents. Izuku went back to work at Pizza Hut and was working hard as usual while Achiko went back to school. Once she entered the classroom, she was bombarded with questions from her classmates asking if she's okay or congratulating her for becoming second. As she went to her seat, she looked across the room to see Izumi and Bakugo giving her a cold stare. "I'm gonna have to be more cautious around those two," she mentally said. As Mr. Aizawa came in, he spoke to them about how they will be interning with pro heroes. When lunchtime came around, he showed them the offers from highest to lowest. Everyone was not surprised because Izumi got the highest. They were surprised that Achiko got the second highest. "Wow, Achiko. I guess that fight against Bakugo really made you stand out," Sue said. "Shut up, you demon frog, I was just caught off guard," Bakugo said from across the room. "Bet he's still upset because he lost to a girl," Kaminari whispered to 𝐒𝐬𝐼. "I heard that," Bakugo said as he chased Kaminari out of the room. Achiko took the sheet of offers and went through it. "What kind of agency should I join? Man, if Izuku had an agency of his own, I would definitely have joined," she said to herself. But before she could decide, Midnight came in and helped everyone choose hero names. Izumi chose to go by Green Might while Uraraka chose Uravity. "Crappy name, I know. I'm truly not the best at naming in the city currently." Izuku was making a 𝗕𝗏𝗚 on his skateboard while talking to Achiko through his earpiece. "Internship?" he asked. But I got so many offers, I don't know what to pick. So I'm asking for your opinion," Achiko said on the phone. As Izuku handed the pizza to the customer and received the money, he stopped to think. "I know, why not try the Gunhead agency? I heard he's an excellent fighter and is specially trained in weapon holding," Izuku said as he rode his skateboard back to the restaurant. I think that's a good idea." "Thanks, Aizu," she said as she made a kiss sound to the phone. As Izuku hung up, he looked at his hands. "I wonder if there's more to this power than I even know. Maybe I should do my own internship," he said to himself. As he returned to the restaurant, he performed his normal duties. While mopping the floors, he overheard the news report on the TV talking about the hero Ingenium. He heard that he was critically injured by the hero killer. "The hero killer, huh?" Izuku said while mopping. "If I didn't know any better, his brother is in the same class as Achiko." Izuku's eyes widened as Izuku went down to his lair. He continued to wonder if he has used his powers to their full potential, so he made a call. "Hello," the person on the phone said. "Hey, Mr. Splinter," Izuku said. "Oh, Izuku, it's good to hear from you again. How've you been? Have you been keeping up with your training?" Splinter said on the phone. "By the way, I wanted to ask you something," said Izuku. "What is it?" "I just wanted to know, is there a way to improve Hamato Ninpō inside me?" he asked. There was a long silence on the other side. "I'm sorry, Izuku. Remember, the Hamato Ninpō inside you is only shared portions from the turtles. It's not really something you can improve," Splinter said. "I understand," Izuku said sadly as he was about to hang up. But, Splinter said, catching Izuku's attention. That doesn't stop you from making your own, he said. What do you mean? Izuku asked, both confused and surprised. You would have to be here in person to find out. When you have the time, come down to New York, said Splinter. Izuku thought for a moment before answering. Okay, I'll be there as soon as I can, he said before hanging up. The next day, Izuku was currently at the train station waiting for the train to take him to the airport. He already told Max and Achiko that he would be taking a trip to New York for some training. Although he had to try to shake off Achiko since she constantly begged to go with him. While waiting, he heard voices next to him. He turned and noticed the students in Class 1A with the pro hero eraser head. Shoot, he said as he moved to hide behind a wall. He listened to where he heard how each of the students will behave at their internships. One by one, as everyone boarded, he noticed Achiko heading into one of the trains. What caught him by surprise was when she looked through the window and blew a kiss directly at him as the train left. I feel like I taught her too well, he whispered himself before boarding the train to the airport. Doing the same thing he did when he left New York, he snuck onto a plane that was set to fly to New York. A few hours later, inside an underground dojo, Splinter was currently meditating. Without opening his eye, he caught a shuriken that was suddenly thrown at him. Your stealth skills have improved, Izuku, Splinter said, turning around to face him. Where are my turtle brothers? Izuku asked. They're busy patrolling the city above, Splinter said. Izuku walked up to Splinter and went to his knees. I have returned in order to become a better ninja master. How do I create my own Nino? Izuku said, bowing with respect. Raise your head, Izuku, because your lesson begins, Splinter said as he attacked Izuku with his cane. Once Izuku dodged out of the way, he threw away his bag and summoned a bow staff. As they sparred with each other, Splinter kept catching Izuku off guard and getting rid of his weapons, causing him to fight hand-to-hand due to the lack of Ninpō energy from making so many weapons. Hour later, Izuku was currently on the ground breathing hard after a hardcore training session. Well, what have you learned? Splinter said, dusting off his robe. That getting my butt beaten by you hurts more than villains. Izuku said, trying to get up. No, but you're right about getting your butt kicked by me, said Splinter. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal the turtle brothers. Ichui, it's Izuku-Midoriya, said, dogpiling his human brother. What are you doing here, dude? Leo asked. Just here to improve my skills, Izuku said while still pinned by Mikey. Mikey, get off him. Based on those bruises, it's obvious Dad was training him, Donnie said, leaning on his bow staff. He quickly got off him and apologized. We'll continue this tomorrow. Think about the lesson on your own time. Meanwhile, the boys to make us some grub, Splinter said, leaving the area. Yeah, we're throwing a welcome home pizza party, Mikey yelled as he and other turtles headed to the kitchen. Izuku looked at his hand and clenched it. I gotta find a way to create my own Ninpō, he whispered to himself before leaving to join the others. Back in Japan, Izumi was sent to Gran Torino where she learned full cowling while Achiko joined Gunhead's agency. He overall impressed on how Achiko is already good at evading, although it was thanks to the ninja sensing Izuku taught her. During the time Izuku spent in New York, he's been honing his original skills by training with the turtles. Thanks to Leo, he was able to create portals at a further distance. Now he doesn't have to sneak onto a plane to go to a different country when he can just portal back home. With Ralph, he can now create over 100 holographic clones. Currently, Izuku was laying on his hammock thinking about how to make his out jutsu while everyone else slept. Then suddenly a thought came into his mind. He activated flame jutsu, summoned his nunchucks, and started spinning it. My weapons are made out of Hamato energy. But what if instead of forming a weapon, I just release the energy, he said before looking at a punching bag. He hopped off his hammock and walked towards it. Izuku closed his eyes, concentrated his energy directly on the palm of his right hand. Instead of weapon shape, what if I make it into ball shape, he mentally said as the energy swirled up into a ball. Instead of weapon shape, what if I make it into ball shape, he mentally said as the energy swirled up into a ball. Once he felt the energy, instead of forming a weapon, he formed it into the shape of a ball. Because of the loud sounds he was making, the turtles and our Splinter came to the room tired. What's the ruckus? Donnie said, rubbing his eyes only to open them wide at the sight of Izuku and what he was holding in his hand. What's the ruckus? Donnie said, rubbing his eyes only to open them wide at the sight of Izuku and what he was holding in his hand. Izuku opened his eyes, showing it change shape and color. It wasn't blue, nor red, nor purple, nor orange. It was green. He's done it, Splinter said, seeing his pupil. He's done it, Splinter said, seeing his pupil. Izuku then slapped his right hand on the punching bag, causing it to destroy upon impact. He looked at the destroyed bag and marveled at his work. No freaking way, he said as he looked at his hands to see it slightly sore. No freaking way, he said as he looked at his hands to see it slightly sore. I guess this is the drawback. He then felt arms wrap around his neck. He turned to see Mikey looking at him with stars in his eyes. Dude, that was so radical, he said in excitement. What do you call that jutsu? Leo asked. Well, definitely not smash jutsu, cause that's already taken, Ralph said with his arms crossed. Izuku looked at his hand, clenched it, and smiled. I'll call this the Rasengan. Days later, a few days have passed since Izuku learned how to make the Rasengan. He noted that he would only use that technique unless it's his final resort due to the amount of power it releases and the number of drawbacks it can cause Izuku's arm. Right now he's currently packing his bag, getting ready to return to Japan. Come on dude, can't you just stay a bit longer? Mikey asked with a sad face. Izuku closed his eyes as he remembered when the news report mentioned that the hero killer attacked Ingenium and how his brother was having a face of revenge on his face at the train. Sorry, but I have a feeling something bad's gonna go down back home, he said as he looked at the hand he performed the Rasengan with, which was wrapped up in a bandage. And I'm gonna be the one to stop it. The turtles couldn't help but feel proud of him. Izuku summoned his Odachi, concentrated on the train station he took to the airport, and opened a portal. Well, I'm off guys, he said. The brothers held out their fists in respect and Izuku held up his. Turtle power, Izuku shouted as his suit came out from his ring. At the same time, he jumped into the portal until he landed in a bathroom stall with a foot in the toilet. Guess I should have thought more carefully about where to land, he said while laughing behind his mask. As he stepped out of the bathroom, he quickly hid behind a pillar when he saw someone he didn't expect. He saw his younger twin sister walking with a little old man wearing a yellow suit. See, why'd she have to be here at the same time? And who's that person with her? A pro, he said to himself. Now boarding the next train to Shinjuku Station. All passengers please board the train. The person on the train station P. A system said. Shinjuku Station. It's gonna go past Hosu City. Perfect, Izuku whispered as he jumped onto the train. You gotta be kidding me, he said to himself as he saw Izumi walk into the same train he was in. He chose to shrug it off as the train started to depart. During the ride, Izuku lay on top of the train while playing a game on his phone. He chose not to tell Achiko that he was back because he wanted to save it as a surprise. Suddenly the train came to a sudden stop. What the hell was that? Izuku said as he slipped on his mask. He got his answer when he saw a recognizable creature rip the side of the train. Another Nomu. What the hell are the League up to? He said as he summoned his katanas. Surprisingly, the old man who Izumi was traveling with came and kicked it in the face, causing it to fly away. As the old pro began to chase after it, Izuku took the chance to observe his surroundings. He was in the city he was aiming for, but it was in total chaos. I gotta find Ingenium's brother fast, he said as he jumped off the roof of the train. Using his speed, he jumped from rooftop to rooftop until he heard screaming from an alleyway. He followed the scream until he spotted 3 figures. One was a pro hero, the other was Ingenium's brother due to his costume, and the other was the hero killer himself holding a blade over the student. OSHT, Izuku said as he jumped off the roof, activated tech jutsu in which summoned his bow staff and smacked the hero killer in the face. Ida took the chance to look up at his savior. Hey, are you okay? Izuku asked Ida, who was on the ground. You're the one from the USJ attack. Carapace, he struggled to say. I heard what happened to your brother. Telling that you're here, you must be out for revenge, am I right? He asked. Ida gritted his teeth as tears began to come out of his eyes. I have to live up to the Ingenium name and kill this monster. So get out of here and let me do this, he yelled. Izuku sighed at what he said. If your own brother was here right now, do you think he will happy to see his own little brother living up to the ingenium name by covering it in stains 𝗵𝗃𝗍? Izuku asked, causing Ida's eyes to widen in fear. Stain got both their attention when he got up after being knocked by Izuku's stick. I heard about you. You're that young ninja vigilante. You know, we're kinda like you and me. How about you join in bringing justice to these fake heroes? Stain said, pointing his sword towards the hero native. Izuku in response switched from his bow staff to his twin katanas. I understand what it means to bring justice. But you're just a psychotic monster. And I'm gonna be the one to stop you, Izuku said as he dashed towards the villain at blinding speed, causing both him and Stain's swords to clash with each other. And I'm gonna be the one to stop you, Izuku said as he dashed towards the villain at blinding speed, causing both him and Stain's swords to clash with each other. Yes, this proves you're worthy to fight me, Stain said as he struggles against Izuku's blades. Worthy my but, Izuku said as he continued to fight Stain. Each time they clash swords, they would give each other scars or slash bits of each other's suit. Izumi was currently running through the city while looking at the destruction. This is crazy, she said, looking at her surroundings. Suddenly she heard the sounds of swords clashing in an alleyway. She walked slowly towards it and took a peek to see the hero killer himself fighting the green vigilante. Stain and carapace, she asked herself. But her attention was brought to Ida was lying on the ground beaten up. Oh my god, Ida, she said as she activated full cowling and rushed over to his injured classmate. Izumi, you're here too. Ida struggled to say. Hold on, I'll get help, she said as she took out her phone and sent out an SOS to all her classmates, telling them what's happening and where they are. She then felt Ida's hand grab her arm. You gotta help him take him, Stain, Ida struggled to say, causing Izumi to look at the two swordsmen clash with one another. She nodded as she activated full cowling, jumped from one wall to another, and punched Stain in the face. She then stood beside Carapace in a fighting position. Thanks for the assist, Izuku said, dusting himself off. No problem, Izumi said as she observed the vigilante standing beside her. Her eyes widened when she noticed pathers of green hair poking through the rips of his mask. It really is you, big brother. As Stain got up, he noticed the two teens standing in front of him. You stay out of this, you unworthy hero, Stain remarked. Like hell I would, Izumi retorted back. The two siblings dashed towards the villain at blinding speed. They were so fast, Stain couldn't really see them. What's happening? I can't even follow their movements, he shouted, seeing green streaks all around the place. Suddenly he felt a punch to his stomach and a smack to his face by what felt like a stick. Their speed even impressed Ida. The attacks kept going until Stain slashed his sword, cutting Izumi's legs. As soon as he licked her BLD of his blade, she froze and fell to the ground. What the hell? I can't move, she said as she struggled to get up. Stain slowly walked up to her due to her injuries. Now you die, he shouted as he raised his blade to her. As he strikes down, Izumi closed her eyes in fear. When she didn't feel anything, she slowly opened it to see something unbelievable. Carapace was holding the blade with his left hands. She could tell he's hurt due to BLD dripping from it. Listen here. Until I make a name for myself as a hero, I don't care what happens, I'm not gonna die, he yelled despite the pain he's feeling. Both Izumi and Ida were shocked by his words. Stain yelled as he was about to use his other hand and reached for a weapon. Unfortunately, Ida was able to get up due to recovering from the paralyze. He used his engine to boost himself to the villain and latch himself onto his hand to prevent him from grabbing a weapon. Carapace took this as a chance to attack. All right, here I go, he shouted as his Hamato eyes turned green. He began moving his finger on his right hand in a circular motion to cause the energy to move around into a ball. What the hell is that? Stain said, seeing the green orb in his hands. The two students marveled at the sight as well. Compress the energy, keep it going, he said until it Thursday-tedded into Stain's chest. Compress the energy, keep it going, he said until it Thursday-tedded into Stain's chest. Rasengan Stain screamed in pain from the attack until he was launched into the wall. He laid limp there, not being able to move. Ida, Izumi and Izuku, who was holding hand due to the strain, walked up to him. I always thought All Might was the one who's worthy to fight me, but I was wrong. Carapace, you're the one who's worthy enough to kill me, he wheezed out of his mouth before passing out with his mouth open. Izuku shook his head, not wanting to go that far. I guess when you used that attack on him, it caused his ribs to punch his lungs, Ida said, holding where Stain stabbed him. Izumi Midoriya, the three of them heard at the entrance of the alley. They could see some of their classmates and some pro heroes running towards them, including the number 2 pro hero. Look, it's the hero killer, Kaminari said, pointing at the villain. And Carapace, said Todoroki. 2 in 1 day. I got this, Endeavor said while running. Guess that's my cue to leave, Izuku said as he summoned his Odachi in his left hand, opened a portal and escaped through it, leaving Izumi and Ida to explain what has happened.